I need to load another bowl, god damn it. Sorry for the delay, listeners. Oh. Gotta get that bowl properly loaded here. Today's strain is Tangy, for me at least. Right now, ripping this intro and ripping this bowl of Tangy. There we go. Whew. This is episode 5 of the Bowl30 podcast. I just killed a death-tempered raccoon, and let's dive into it. Let's dive into it. Nah. How about let's fire it up. Let's let it burn. Let it burn. Bam, bam, bam. Let it burn. Bam, bam, bam. Look of horror on Lucas's face right now. Because I just told him I've never seen Rick and Morty.
And I want everyone to write in and chide Evan for this, because Rick and Morty is probably the finest piece of literature to be produced.
But is it as good as Game of Thrones?
Better.
Better?
Yeah.
Chime in on the comments on that one, because I don't know for sure.
Because it makes fun.
Because he hasn't seen any of Game of Thrones.
I have seen the first episode, and I have read 2 of the books, so I don't want to hear any that I don't know what it's about. I know.
You got to think like right now. Some people are like really divided. There's some people on your side that are like, no, Lucas is definitely right, and other people that are like, no, Evan doesn't know.
And you have heard my criteria for watching the show.
So this is actually the inauguration podcast. Not that it's our first show. This will probably be our 5th show, I think.
Yeah.
That today was inauguration day for Lucas doesn't seem too very thrilled about this one.
Well, considering all of the things that have changed in the last, it has been exactly 12 hours. We are recording this 12 hours after the inauguration has taken place.
Yeah. Oh, is there a lot in the news going on? Following.
Have you been to the White House's website?
No.
Guess what things have disappeared? I mean, they didn't even say, well, we're not changing the policy. We're just not even going to talk about it anymore.
Really?
Climate change. Gone. Disappeared.
It's not on the White House's website
Not on the
anymore?
White House's website anymore. Oh, it gets better. It gets better. About 2 hours after that, the LGBT progressing web page on the White House's website disappeared.
Did you see that with your own eyes? Like before and after? Like you know for sure that
I have seen screenshots, and then I went and checked myself.
That's terribly disconcerting, really.
You think?
Yeah.
Hold
on, no. Maybe they'll release an update in a couple days. I don't know.
Oh,
that's bad though.
It is. Okay, there's one more thing. Okay, there's the White House started up this petition page. Remember the petition page? Because you have the right to petition your government for redress.
Right. So they did change.org.
Well, the first petition under Trump's presidency was, you need to release your taxes and tell us what your business interests are, otherwise you're in violation of the emolument clause of the presidency of the United States. You cannot use your position in office to make business deals.
That's the newest one.
You cannot accept money from foreign governments.
Did they clear out like the old ones off the website, or are all those old positions are still there?
They have all changed. They have all changed.
Did they delete that one?
And the thing is, when I went and looked at the petition, it had enough signatures to be acted upon.
Right.
However, it had been cut off. There was no more. You couldn't put any more. They had stopped it after, I think, 130,000 or something. They just cut off. They said, nope, we're not going to do it anymore.
That's interesting. This is like, I'm looking forward to doing this podcast daily and like kind of seeing how things go and all of that. I saw Obama load up on a huge fucking helicopter, man. I've never seen that thing before. That helicopter that they flew off in. Did you see it after the inauguration?
I think that's Air Force Two.
That's a plane.
The Marine helicopter.
Air Force One and Air Force Two are both planes.
Are they? Then maybe
Yeah,
it's
there's
Air
a
Force
different.
3.
There's something else that they call it. I think.
No, it's Air Force whatever or Marine 3. I think is what it is because it's actually a Marine helicopter.
Right, because there were two Marines standing, like right there, like guarding the helicopter. They were standing like the soldiers over in England, you know, where they're just like they're like at attention, just like holding this position. It's like it would be cool to be that Marine, to be like that close to the new president and the old president, to like be one of those two Marines standing there. That'd be kind of cool, you know. Like if you could, like whoever that kid's or whoever that person's children are will be like, oh, look at that, that's my dad, he's standing right there. You know, that's pretty cool.
I mean, there is a sense of kind of honorism, I suppose, on being there.
Yeah, I met a soldier one time. He was, I think he fought in World War II. When I met him, this was a couple years ago. He's like 80 years old, but he flew the B-52 that like had the nuke on it, like when they first were doing that. I don't know if it was like that they had mobile stations on for launching. I don't know. They had the ability to like launch the nukes and guide them with computers on the B-52, and he landed in England and met the Queen. The Queen came onto the plane, and he was the guy that got to show her around. He's telling me the story, and I'm like, gosh, that's really cool, you know?
That'd be kind of fun. I mean, she used to be hot, you know? I mean, she wasn't always that dumpy little frumpy thing. I'm sorry, Your Majesty, I really am.
Do you know about her sister that, like, is not on the records at all, that is, like, totally disowned? She has a sister that, you know, because they're so inbred, there's definitely, like, a propensity for children not coming out perfect. And one of her siblings, like, came out kind of retarded and has spent her whole life in care, but she doesn't show up on, like, any of the official rosters as being a member of the royal family. It's kind of like the royal family, like, doesn't acknowledge retards. It's just terrible to say, but it's kind of the conclusion you'd have to draw. If there's listeners in the UK, they're probably like, oh, that's a crazy conspiracy theory, but I looked into that, and I think it's totally true.
I mean, it's possible. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that happens in the upper echelons that we don't know about.
The royal family is a great source for conspiracy theory. If you're into conspiracy theories and you've kind of like run out of ideas of like what YouTube videos to search the royal family, man. There's some great conspiracy theories in there. Like,
they're werewolves, you know.
Well, David Icke's theories are wonderful. Wonderful. If you can bring yourself to a place of like believing that there's reptilian aliens roaming around and shape-shifting, you might need to tone it back a little bit.
Well,
conspiracy theories are fun, though, man. I love them. I love hearing them and
sure,
and trying to get to the position of like, how could this actually be true? You know, like what other things would have to be going on to make this a possibility?
Well, the conspiracies as well as paradoxes, I think, are the playground of the open mind. A paradox is required thinking to understand anything about the world, and because there are inconsistencies that we have created, that we accept every day, that are real. One of my favorites is this statement is false.
That's a really good one. It's probably one of the shortest paradoxes too.
Yeah.
This statement is false. Four words. Is there a shorter paradox than 4 words? Let us know in the comments.
I'm sure that there is.
There's got to be.
There must be. But, I mean, just that simple. If the statement is false, then it's true. And if it's true, then it's false.
Right.
So, and that's just a quirk of the language. I mean, that's because we can do that.
What if in the future, like maybe like 10 years from now, when robots are like in everyone's houses and they're being their housemaids and stuff, but there's always that possibility that the robot like goes rogue and starts attacking you. But like then people like learn paradoxes, right? And like all the humans, like we talk about our paradoxes that we know to yell at the robots to send them into an endless loop.
Mm-hmm.
To like stop them. It's like throw a paradox at the robot. It'll stop it from stabbing you.
Well, yeah, because it'll fall into what is called circular logic, and infinite regress, I think is what it's called, an infinite regressive loop. And one of my personal favorite ones is to I know it starts with a B, is the guy who named it, but if you have the choice between two equal outcomes, how do you make the choice? And a computer can't do it. It cannot do it. Because a human can flip a coin, or a human can say, well, the wind is blowing to the west, so I'm going to go with option 2.
Right. Or, we're so nuanced that we'll have some affinity towards one of those choices for reasons that don't really change its value, I guess you could say.
Yeah. There's actually a very good Star Trek Voyager episode that deals with this very subject. The Doctor ends up... Okay, so if you're not familiar with Star Trek Voyager, a Starfleet vessel has been thrown thousands and thousands of light years away from where they're supposed to be, and it will take them about 70 years to get back home to Earth. And they're...
there's going to be some fucking on that ship going on for sure. Like, that's the next generation.
Funny. I like that. But the Doctor is a hologram, a programmed thing. But they have allowed the program to expand. They've added algorithms. They've tried to make it more user-friendly and able to grow and teach itself. And it hits this paradox and ends up being in a regressive loop and burning out, its logic circuits, and just it can't cope with this. But eventually they find a way to, because it's not just a computer. It's not just a computer program.
Oh, it's beyond that.
Yeah, they've allowed it to
AI,
expand.
basically.
Yeah, they've allowed it to expand and grow and change its own programming and learn from itself.
Man, that's so crazy. I mean, think about, in that program, the programming, that show, is, 20 years old now or something?
I think the last episode was in 2001, so yeah, it's about 20 years old.
Something like that, and they're definitely predicted the future. Like there's been circuit boards that have been designed by an AI program, and I think that whole circuit board was designed inside of a circuit board design program, but they used an AI program to design its own functioning or something.
Mm-hmm.
And within no time, human programmers are looking at how this circuit board is laid out, and it's beyond comprehension, how the AI program got to the point of building. We're looking at something that we can't even understand, and that happened a number of years ago.
Sure.
If I'm right on that.
Well, it's really, I mean, technology is not inherently evil. It's just a tool, and people attribute human characteristics to the technology, like AI. I mean, you hear people talking about it all the time, that when AI comes about, actual AI, we're in real trouble.
But potentially, and
I don't foresee that being an issue. First of all, if we pay attention to the details when we're setting it into motion, it should be all right. The 3 laws of robotics are probably the most important things that were ever written down by anyone. If we create a new life form, and it will be a new life form, we're going to have to set some rules, some ground rules for it.
Right.
I mean, because that's what our society is. A society is us, basically living by each other's rules. We have an agreed upon kind of thing that we go with, and that keeps, not only the species going, but it keeps us functioning.
Yeah. I mean, we have a set of unspoken, unwritten rules that they're not laws, but they function just about the same way that laws do.
They're called mores, social mores.
Social mores.
And they're not laws, but they're basically accepted codes of conduct.
Well, a law is really a law when it personally affects you. When you're behind bars because you broke it, that's when you're like, oh, that's a real thing now, And that same thing happens like if you get hit in the face because you hit on some guy's girlfriend, which isn't illegal to do, but if you do it, you might want to run fast if you see a big old guy coming after you. It's not looking too happy.
Well, that's self-preservation, but it just strikes me as funny. All of these things that we have to think about all the time, but we never do.
Well, there's definitely like a bare minimum for getting by. Like you can think just enough to get by, and you can switch your brain over to the receiving state, which I love doing. Like I love going on YouTube and watching documentaries and learning stuff. But I don't know. I wind up thinking quite a bit of when I'm doing that too.
But that's not. I don't think that's a passive mode. I think if you're actively participating in the learning process, allowing other viewpoints to come across, it's not completely receiving mode.
And I don't know if is there really that much of a difference with what's going on in the brain when you're in receiving mode compared to learning mode. I'm sure there's different parts of the brain that are more turned on or getting more current flow, but I think if you're awake and you're watching something, there's current flow going on. And
well, I'm trying to think because there's the visual centers of the brain which get activated, but are not because it's like I'm trying to think of a way to. Okay, so when you read a book, when you read something that is on a physical piece of paper or in a bound volume, you use different methods of reading it and different methods of processing the information than if you're doing it on a computer screen.
Oh, weird.
And this is why websites, people have done all this research into designing websites in a particular way, because when you look at a website, you actually have a very predictable way of how your eyes move and look across things. Because when you're reading a book, it's, well, at least in the United States and most countries,
left to right.
I can't really say that. It's because there's.
No, I think 95% of written text out there is left to right.
China.
Do they go the other way?
They go down to the left.
I don't even know if they even write anything in China.
Sure they do.
I think they just use English all the time.
Okay.
Just kidding.
No, they use English.
Well, they have to have pretty good English to be listening to this podcast.
That's kind of a funny story in and of itself. Why that happened.
English.
The R and the L transposition.
Why?
It's because I believe the L translated over as what looks like the R sound, and the R translated over to what looks like the L sound, and it's not. And so
it's just like a bad job.
It was just a bad translation, and it unfortunately stuck.
Wow.
Because I'm
there's other historical accounts of that happening.
Well, believe it or not, people from Asia can say "la."
Right.
And it's a horrific stereotype that it's all rah 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 rah. It's not. It was. I mean, one might question whether or not it was
one of the funniest
intentional.
stereotypes out there. Really.
Well, and one might question if it wasn't intentional.
Oh, it very well could be.
So,
especially considering they were dealing with the English, right? And they're known to play jokes
I'm pretty sure it was
and poke fun and Yankee Doodle.
That dry British tongue-in-cheek wit.
So Peking, if you look at like older maps
Yep.
and you look for the capital of China, it's written out as Peking.
Yep.
And you still see it on menus like Peking duck.
Sure.
Right, but then I'm not sure what year it was, but it changed, right? The capital changed to Beijing, right?
I'm pretty sure that was in the 70s when right after Nixon went and they opened up relations with China. They made things easier for foreign investors.
And I think they opened up travel. My
yeah.
uncle,
Oh, yeah.
Jeffrey Collins, you can actually find and it's spelled with a G, Jeffrey. He was one of the first Americans to go into China after they allowed travel.
Yeah, yeah.
He was I think he was the first group of students to go into China.
Well, I mean,
crazy.
it was a very exciting time in the late 70s and the early 80s because so many engineering firms and architectural firms went in and started building up.
Yeah, lots of trade to be had there, absolutely.
Well, let's see, since 1970, what, 2? They've been most favored nation?
Is that right?
Trading with us?
So the capital changed, or at least it would seem that way.
Or
But if you actually
just
look
the
into
name.
it, it's just the name.
Yeah.
Because we had the translation wrong.
Beijing.
What they've called it has always been the same, and I'm not sure how they pronounce Beijing in China, but I'm sure they don't say Beijing. But it's always the way that they've pronounced it, the way they've written it. It's always been the same. Our translation was bad, but you would think like, oh, they moved the capital or something. But
Yeah.
nope, it's just a name change. Just fun fact there.
Right. I mean, it's remarkable how many misunderstandings through simple translation errors.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And countries changing names and capitals changing names. There's so much. I don't know if in high school if I just wasn't paying attention much. I didn't get great grades, so maybe that was the case in my civic studies and whatnot. But as I've gotten older, I've ran across the Wikipedia page for India and looked into the history and then learned the history that goes back between India and Pakistan and how the countries were divided basically because of religion was the big thing. And there used to be a West Pakistan, I think, or an East and West Pakistan.
No, West India.
Was it West India?
The entire thing used to be India, and then they hacked part of it off. That became Pakistan. There was a big hoodoo of people crossing the border after it was established in 40...
Early, long time ago. Things we don't typically care about or care to learn about.
I'm really pulling figures here, but it was around the same time as Gandhi was about to come to power. So 40 something maybe. I really can't remember.
Yeah.
When it was. But it was the British I believe still had sovereignty.
Man, India's culture is something else. The untouchables, their caste system that they have.
We have the same thing. We just don't define it as well.
It's not defined as well, and there aren't consequences for breaking classes that are written in law, right? Like the untouchables. If you don't know what an untouchable is, in India there's a caste system. So quite literally the people are divided up into different castes, which is spelled C-A-S-T-E, is that right? And like the lowest group of people are the untouchables, and they're called that because they're not supposed to touch you and you're not supposed to touch them. Which is that's really pretty fucked up. The approach to it is, if you're like a middle class person in one of the higher castes, which I don't know what they're called, but the whole mentality is, oh no, it's because of something you did in your past life and you're living your own course, and that's kind of the moral justification for it. And I think it ties in with the Hinduism as well.
You're also dealing with how many people?
Well over 1 billion.
Well, and it's always been a very populous country.
Have you ever zoomed in on a map on areas like Punjabi or any area in India?
Mm-hmm.
It's a really well organized system that they have. You typically have a condensed city area, and then surrounding it is all farmland, and then there's kind of like the next, condensed city area with farmland all around it. But if you look at it on Google Earth and zoom in, you'll see it's spaced out in almost like a perfect fashion, almost kind of like a beehive. It's really cool.
I look at that as it's almost a natural progression from feudal systems.
I can see that.
You have the seat of government, if you will, in the center, with all the markets and things that go about with that, and then all of the area surrounding it is the farmland that provides the food for the area,
which is wonderful. So when you have it set up that way, then you don't have to ship crops like really far across the country. You probably don't even need trucks to bring the food in because it's so darn close. It's right there. It's just right outside of the city. It's farmland surrounding all of their cities.
Well, and India really isn't that big of a country. I mean, sometimes look. There's a thing that'll show you comparisons, because when we look at flat maps, things don't look right, but it'll actually give you comparisons of how things look on top of each other if you were to actually put them on top of each other.
Oh, like countries on top
countries on top of each other.
Because there's always a distortion when you're looking at any map.
Because Greenland is not nearly as big as we think it is.
It's like way smaller.
It's remarkably smaller
than that specific map that we're really familiar with. There are other maps that stretch things in different ways.
Yeah, like that one that looks like a weird 3M.
I think that one's the best, isn't it?
It's. I mean, it doesn't beat a globe,
right?
Because a globe is going to show you really.
Globes are pretty good.
Yeah, they're pretty good. Oh, here's an interesting tiny little fact for you. If you were to take a bowling ball and blow it up to the size of the Earth, those scratches that you see on the surface of the bowling ball, would be deeper than the Marianas Trench. We live on a pretty smooth fucking marble.
Yeah.
In comparison to,
Well, the deepest part of the Marianas Trench is, what is it, like 13,000 feet?
7 miles.
7 miles. So it's 25,000 feet deep or something?
35,000 plus 1,400, 36, 37,000
feet. And then, like, the size of the globe in feet, the diameter is a much, much larger number, which makes that possible. So crazy, too, like, the depth of our atmosphere. If you were to condense that down onto a globe, it would be like, or onto a bowling ball. If you were to shrink the Earth down to the size of a bowling ball, the atmosphere would be only like a millimeter thick.
Less than
it'd be like
micron thick. There's really not much there. 8,000 diameter, I think is it 8,000 kilometers or 8,000 miles? Crap. I could look this up, but I'm far too lazy. So if anybody wants to
talk about a hard thing to measure, like whenever they talk about like measuring planets and planetary masses and things,
okay,
like, what's your margin of error there?
Somebody's going to have to tell me if this one is wrong. I'm not sure who the Greek was. I want to say it was Archimedes. It might have been Eratosthenes. I can't remember which. Calculated the circumference and diameter of the Earth accurately in...
I think it was Archimedes.
Wait, 100, BC or something. Okay, long fucking time ago.
Well, there's an experiment where you take a ball of something heavy and you swing it from like a ceiling, and you can, from that swinging back and forth, you can discern information about like how much, I think, our gravity rate and or
Oh,
you
sure,
can actually
yeah,
calculate
yeah.
the size of the planet from that.
Sure,
right?
sure, because
but
of-
it's
of
such
how-
an absurd thing that you can take a sphere and have it, penduluming back and forth inside of a bedroom,
Well-
and from that you can calculate out
That's-
how big the planet is.
That's actually not that hard to think about, because all you're doing is taking the angular momentum and calculating how much it declines every time it swings by, because obviously the strongest bit is going to be when it's directly perpendicular to the tangent of the sphere that you're trying to measure the size of, and all you have to do is, and I think it only takes like 3 or 4 swings to figure out how much it decays and how much force is being spent, because remember, gravity works 2 ways.
Right. So what's really interesting, what I was going to get at with this, there's this cult that is in Mexico, and if you search flat Earth theory videos, you can run across this one. But there's this cult that's in Mexico, and it's like a science-based cult. It's kind of like I wouldn't say it's a spin-off, but a kind of something parallel to L. Ron Hubbard's Scientology. That it's like a science-based cult, right? And they in this cult, they have this secret room, and in that room is this experiment of the swinging ball, right? Mm-hmm. But they kind of keep that from all the cult members. Like you have to be like really well initiated until they show you this part, right? And I'm sure there's all sorts of really weird shit involved in this cult as well. But this guy that escaped from it, he's speaking in Spanish, and he's on a Spanish like Oprah show talking about how he got out of this cult and how horrible it was, and what did they believe in the cult? And he said, like their biggest secret is that you can measure the size of the Earth with a ball swinging in a room. And the guy just bursts out laughing about it, and like everybody in the program, everyone watching in this live audience is bursting out laughing. I mean, when I watched it, knowing that experiment's true and it's proven and everything, but it's so absurd, like especially when it's used for evil, and then you find out about it and you're duped, and you get out, and then you tell people like, well, what did they believe? Well, they believe that you can measure the size of the planet by taking a small ball and having it swing in a room, and they kept that from us as their grand piece of knowledge.
Well, do you think the Masons actually have any secret knowledge or control? I mean, this is dipping right into conspiracy right here, okay? I think that the Masons are guys who just kind of get together and drink every now and again. It's like a social club.
I would have to say so.
I mean,
I have a piece of Masonic regatta. I'm going to go grab it from next door.
Okay.
Over here because it's super awesome, and there's a story that goes along with it. And I got to refill my coffee, so I'll be back.
Yeah. So then I'm gonna take this opportunity to take piss. That was what we call perfect timing.
Is it still recording?
Oh yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Well, you all just got a nice 1-minute break or something there. All right, so what I
Unless you
have
heard
here...
me peeing, and then that might be...
That might have been entertainment.
Yeah.
So check this out. So it's a hat that I'm showing Lucas here. It's a black hat, and it's basically a round cylinder with a flat top on it.
That's the
cylindrical part's only about two...
like the same bird that's on the Albanian flag.
So like a double eagle that's on the center of it. But this is a Mason hat, and you see the triangle?
The triangle on the top,
and it has a number in there.
Does it? Really?
Yeah.
Oh, 32nd level.
Yeah, a black cap indicates that the wearer has attained the 32nd degree.
Now that's impressive.
Isn't that a really cool piece of their regatta? And there's a little card that came with it. And
you don't know who made it.
There's a lot of boring stuff in here where it talks about different caps. A white cap indicates a 33rd degree Inspector General honorary. A purple cap indicates that the wearer is a 33rd degree Sovereign Grand Inspector General and active member of the Supreme Council. And as the white lambskin in the badge of a Mason... And the white lambskin is the badge of a Mason. So is the regulation cap the badge of the Scottish Rite Mason. And
the little buttons on it also have the eagle on it, but underneath he's carrying what looks like a flag, like a pole for holding draperies and stuff with some kind of.
Yeah, we'll post a picture on it. We'll probably throw it up on our Twitter once we get that set up. But we did get our email set up today, which is bowl30podcast@gmail.com. Right?
Yep.
Yep. No dots or nothing. It's just BOWLTHIRTY
podcast.
PODCAST. So it also says on this card here that a light blue cap means the wearer has been a Scottish Rite Mason for 50 years or more. But they also give you a box that this cap comes in. And
does the box have the manufacturer on it? Because I am seeing absolutely nothing about the manufacturer inside.
No, and this thing's old too.
Yeah.
And there's some other stuff written on here, and I don't think I'm going to read the whole card, but it says it is improper. This is what it says at the bottom. The wearing of caps is considered proper at reunions, Scottish Rite meetings, Monday, Thursday services, etc. It is improper for the cap to be worn in cafes, bus stations, on the street, or in any other public place. And this was actually my grandfather's cap.
Which means that if you wanted to be a Mason, you could go probably.
No, I'm a convicted felon, so they wouldn't accept me. You can't be a felon and be a Mason.
Really?
Yeah.
Those bastards.
I think you can commit misdemeanors and be a Mason. Most Masons these days are cops. And there's people out there like, I think we're going to wind up probably getting a lot of conspiracy theorists
a fez!
Interested in that.
That's my favorite hat of all time.
So he was also a member of the
Shriners.
The Shriners. He was also a Shriner.
Yeah.
And I was told, I don't know if it's true, but that you have to be a 32nd degree Mason to be a Shriner.
I'm pretty sure that you got to be up there.
Yeah. I think that's how it works. But they drink moose piss at the Scottish Rite Temple. And moose piss is just beer, but I don't know why they call it moose piss. Maybe because they're not. The Masonic lodges are dry. I'll tell you that. Like they don't drink alcohol inside of the lodges at all, but they do drink beer. The Shriners do drink their beer. And I don't know. There's people that think that Masons are all bad and stuff. I think for the most part it's kind of probably really benign. If there is something that is like Illuminati-esque about the Masons, it would be in those like 33rd degree members. And
it's ridiculous. It is seriously ridiculous. Okay, if you ever want to have just a fun little read. Okay, no, it's not a fun little read, but it's a fun read. But the Illuminatus trilogy
by Robert Anton Wilson, right?
Wonderful, wonderful book. I I read it through the first time, and it was entertaining. Then I dropped acid and read the entire book in one sitting.
On acid?
And suddenly it became clear to me what it was about.
Dude, I think Lucas is some sort of a medical phenomenon. They need to research him. You can read on acid?
Yeah.
I've tried to read on acid before and I've gotten through like 2 sentences. Like I'm just like
well, this book is
all over
written.
the place.
This book is written so that it's easier to read on acid.
I can see Robert Anton Wilson doing such things.
But because the entire first chapter is told from the perspective of a squirrel. But
really,
that's beside the point. This book is wonderful in the fact that it leads you down all of these paths and it takes you through all of this evidence that's happened throughout time and history. And basically, and I'm not ruining the book at all by telling you this. It turns around and says, you understand that this is not real, right? It's like this is one of the largest jokes that has been put upon the human species, and we did it to ourselves. All these people did was pull strings and say, oh, well, if you don't belong to this, you don't get to know, what's actually happening. But it's a great read. Wonderful book. So I highly suggest that for your reading pleasure. But it delves into Masons and the why are there 13 steps on some pyramid somewhere and why is it when you look on the $1 bill that I is 17 steps above something. I mean, it just goes throughout all of this stuff. And yes, you can actually believe this if you really wanted to, but
well, they definitely have if you become a Mason, I think you wind up. Well,
you're connected.
You have to learn stuff.
Yeah, but
a lot of stuff that they go through, and then when you go into like the ancient history of Masons, when they actually, were Masons.
There's a reason
building and they're. Yeah, I think a lot of the stuff in DC was built by the Masons.
Yeah. If you look at the layout of DC, and there's tons of stuff on this too, it's actually set up in a pentagram with the pyramid, the half pyramid, trapezoidal shape, with and right where the eye of the pyramid would be. Is the Masonic Temple in Washington, D.C. So, I mean, you can look at this, and it's actually, I mean, it's right there. You can't deny that the city is set up in this particular way.
It looks like an owl, too.
From another angle.
And then you've got the owl that's on the back of the $1 bill in the top corner. It's a teeny tiny little owl. You've seen it, yeah?
I'm afraid that they took the spider away, though.
Did they?
Yeah. The spider is no longer on the $1 bill, and I always loved looking for that and saying, "Hey, look, there's a spider in there." But the Masons, I mean, the whole society came about because it was a skilled trade that you had your particular way of making mortar. You had your particular way of laying the bricks.
Lots of secrets. Trade
secrets. And that's why it came about. And they built everything, so of course they're going to be everywhere. But this also, I mean, it's also the same as like a fraternity. Somebody who belongs to a fraternity will probably never want for a job. Ever. Because they are connected. They are within a society.
Yeah, if you really get into that fraternity and you're,
Yeah, and that's what it is. It's
get
just
into that life.
Joining a group that connects you to other groups, and it is a way of getting things done.
Dude, the Skull and Bones fraternity?
Yeah.
Have you heard about their initiation process?
Which one?
The one where you're like naked in like a isolated area, but there's like elder members that are watching you from like above, and you're kind of like in a pit area, and you have to masturbate.
Good Lord.
Yeah, it's like really weird. You know what's really weird? It's George W. Bush. When he was going through that initiation, his dad requested to be one of the 13 members of like the overseeing council. So George W. Bush had to like beat off in front of his dad. That's like so weird, and I don't think that's like debated at all. Or I don't think anyone from the Skull and Bones says that's not the case. You know.
I think that these are just tasks that are put forth to prove that you really want to be a part of the group.
They're tasks or
Yeah.
texts.
Tasks.
Yeah.
Tasks. Sorry. Sometimes.
That's just strange, though.
And it comes from a place of paranoia, of fear, because knowledge is power. We know this. We know this for a fact. If you keep the knowledge, you keep the power.
Yeah, if you got the right knowledge, that's for sure.
Sneakers. Do you ever see the movie Sneakers?
I haven't seen that.
Robert Redford, Ben Kingsley, Dan Aykroyd, Sidney Poitier, River Phoenix. Oh crap! What was the guy? The blind guy. Whose name I can't think of right now, but he's been in tons of stuff. David Strathairn. It was 92, I think, that it came out. I mean, right about the same time that the internet was becoming a thing. And this is why, but it resonates true today.
And this is the movie, the Sneakers.
Sneakers,
Like the shoes.
yes,
Same spelling as
yeah.
that,
What this guy does for a living is he tests, the alarm systems and hackability of particular institutions, and tells them where their flaws are and how to fix them, because that's what he does. He's the original hacker. I mean, the opening scene pretty much explains his entire background. He's a college student in the 70s, using a dial-up modem where you would actually put the phone onto the device that would
That's so funny.
that would scream that. And you've all heard these noises. You may not know that you've heard these noises.
Not like the people that are like 20 that are listening to this.
No, they've heard the noises. They just don't know what they are. But that screechy that's what you'll hear it in fax machines too. And I don't know why we still use fax machines. Those make no sense to me.
It's been a long time since I picked up the phone and like heard that sound coming from the other side. I'm like, is someone trying to connect to my computer?
That was one of the best things about being a teenager in the 90s. Dad, get off the phone. I need to use the internet.
Yeah. We had I was lucky enough to have a second phone line in my house.
Oh, that is
For that 56K. That was
booyah!
That was the good stuff, man, when that came out.
Hell yeah! I started out with a 300 baud modem in a PC Junior.
Huh. I don't even know what that would even look like.
A piece of crap.
How fast was that modem?
300 baud. When you're talking 56.6, that is 56,600 baud.
And you were at 0.3K.
Thereabouts here.
Not 56K, 0.3K.
Yeah, I was so thrilled when I upgraded to a 1200. I thought, ooh, I'm living on Easy Street now.
Yeah. Things are going to be coming in a lot faster. So foxes in Russia. So they grow foxes, they produce them for coats and whatnot in Russia, and it's kind of a bad practice that if you're the person having to handle these foxes, I think they're gray foxes in Russia. They bite and they're terribly hard to handle. So I think the government in Russia funded a program to breed a more tame, handleable.
Domesticate.
Domesticate these wild fox for the purpose of this fur production, right?
Sure.
And so they simply were selectively breeding them based upon calmness. So, a lot of these foxes, you walk up to their cage and they're shaking. The ones that weren't shaking or, being so aggressive, they bred those. And I think it was like 3-4 generations in so within 3 or 4 generations, they had like much more calm foxes. But they also had all these other traits that showed up that weren't present before, like floppy ears. Like these foxes have like really erect ears. Like floppy ears started showing up. Like different pelt colors started showing up, where they were getting like white blotches on their tails, and again they're kind of becoming like calico colorings started to show up. Turned out that what they were selectively breeding for was lower adrenaline levels. And it turns out that adrenaline functions as like a DNA switch changer.
Really?
Yeah. So they had curly tails on some of these foxes. But it's amazing because I think it was like 10 years or 20, within 20, 30 years, they had a domesticated variety of fox. And they had the ability to, you could easily selectively breed the ones with curly tails together to, get a more curly-tailed variety. And it kind of, I hate to give any fuel for people that are the creationists that say that the Earth is only 4,000 years old, because I think like, you couldn't even domesticate. We have all these different breeds of dogs. There's no way that could happen in that just alone, all these different breeds of dog that we have would take thousands of years, you would think. I don't know, 50,000 years? I think when you actually look up what the prediction is when wolves were domesticated and dogs were with humans, it was, quite a ways back.
Yeah.
I think they say 50,000 years, But it could have been...
For a while.
I think it's plausible that it could have been... It could have happened a lot faster, I'll put it that way, looking at these foxes. So if you're a creationist and you're looking for some fuel, you can co-opt that little theory right there and say, well, the Russians domesticated foxes and had like 7 different varieties, and in 10 years, God could have made the Earth, 4,000 years ago, and dogs came into the picture 500 years ago, and we had 50, 60 breeds of dog within 20, 30 years. Obviously, you'd have to kind of adjust some of those figures to make it actually work for you if you're a creationist, but go for it, take it, co-opt it.
Yeah, if you want, and then I'll have fun poking holes in it. Keep in mind that the fox had already been in the vicinity of people, and they had been co-opted, so the change may have happened earlier than before they even tried. Secondly, the fox are not the original breed either. I mean, there's genetic drift across.
Well, if they're producing these foxes in cages, you're going to be...
Well, but also they're selectively choosing traits that make them more docile.
Yeah.
So my biggest argument against that would be the Galapagos Islands. The whole research that Darwin did, saying, well, how is it that this species of bird, I mean, it's pretty much the only difference on these birds is their beak, and the only reason that difference exists is because there's a particular seed that this bird eats, and it's only on this island where this bird is, and it's this island there's a different seed where this bird is. That can happen within very few generations.
That happened,
and that's just. I mean, the evolutionary leaps happen so fast.
It's shocking.
Yeah.
It really is. And what it takes to have these evolutionary leaps is stress and like large die-offs of populations,
or just a mutation,
or a change of environment.
Yeah.
There's a number of islands around Greece. There's lizards on some of these islands. There's an island that had no lizards on it. And they took some of these lizards in an experiment, and they put like 5 breeding pairs on an island that had no lizard species on it at all. And I think these lizards are actually called skinks, or skanks. It could be skinks, actually. But they started this program, and they released them, and then there was political issues, and the funding went away, and it was kind of like a forgotten experiment. But those researchers eventually got money again, and they went back to the island like 10 years later, and there was like a new species of lizard that was totally different. Like the lizards were eating plants. On the other island, the lizards only ate bugs, but I guess there wasn't bugs for them to eat on this new island, and their jaws totally changed, and the morphological differences were startling. And they've done the research on the DNA. It's the exact same species, but it's changed in I don't know how many generations it would have been, maybe 10 generations or something. But the ones on the original species, super aggressive, and the new ones their social structure was totally changed. They were much more friendly to one another, and they had the abundance of food since there's plants all around for them to eat.
Okay, I'm going to be loud for a second.
Lucas is making us some coffee right now. And listening to some of our previous episodes, I know that we can hear some of what goes on in the kitchen, and we'll make some upgrades to improve our sound quality coming down the pipeline here eventually.
Okay, really, I actually am going to do this here in a second. I just got sidetracked. Okay, ready? Here it is.
Oh, there it is. You know what's funny is like how well this microphone picks that up, because sitting here and listening to it, it's not that bad, but the recording of it is way worse. It's phenomenal how sound bounces around.
Well, the way that I like to put this, and this is how I describe video and other things, is that the camera and the microphone only capture what's there. When you're looking at something, you are selectively editing what you see. Your brain only picks up maybe 10% of what you're actually seeing, unless you take the time to stop, breathe, and look at it, and actually take into account everything. And it's part of our being aware thing that I'm a big fan of. You don't hear things the same way that an objective piece of recording equipment hears things, which is why we have paranormal research picking up sounds that aren't necessarily there.
There's a great movie that came out about that. Did you see it?
White noise?
Yeah.
Or the one with... Yeah, no, that's the one about the radios, right?
I think so.
The guy who's listening to radios in his basement?
Yeah. Did you watch that movie?
I saw... Michael Keaton, I think, is who that was, wasn't it?
I didn't see it. So I don't know.
Bad.
But I saw the previews, and I was thinking, that's a good movie right there.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll ever go watch it, but...
It's actually not a bad movie.
What was the movie with, was it the Foster woman, the alien movie with the...
Contact.
That is probably, that is one of the coolest movies ever.
If you could
in my opinion. That's just the fucking coolest movie.
If you could subtract one thing from it, I would call it the perfect movie.
Yeah? What would you subtract out of it?
Matthew McConaughey.
I love Matthew McConaughey, man. Have you seen his police report? His arrest on, I think it's on Snopes.
I'm sure it's fascinating. He's a fascinating fellow.
Dude, he got busted. They're a neighbor's called the cops on him for a noise complaint, and the police report reads that they showed up at his estate and the gate was open, or it was unlocked, and so they just walked in, the front door's open. Matthew McConaughey is stoned out of his mind, playing bongos, just sitting on the floor naked. I mean, what a life he was living at that time, man.
At that time, he's still living that life. You know what I love about high school girls? I keep getting older and they stay the same age.
But that's from
Dazed and Confused.
Dazed and Confused. That's an older movie now. Have you watched it lately?
Mm-mm.
No, I kind of have most of it, at least the bits that I really liked memorized.
That's a great movie.
But it's a fantastic movie. If you haven't seen it,
you got a lot of weed theme in there, and
even though it was about the 70s, made in the 90s,
really holds true. It's a lot like John Hughes films. The just the trials and tribulations that they're trying to put forth and talk about, and the things that are talked about in those movies. Those are all things that teenagers do and talk about.
Yeah.
And I remember, I mean, that's why I loved, the John Hughes films and Dazed and Confused. And
Ben Affleck is really scary in Dazed and Confused. He's a big buff bully in high school.
I have mixed.
If I was a
feelings about
middle
Ben
school
Affleck.
student and I watched that movie, I would be so scared of high school.
Yeah. You'd be like, I really want to hang with that stoner guy. I really, really do.
Yeah.
Well, Martha Washington, man, when George was coming home from the hemp fields, what would she do? She'd load him a big-ass bowl.
Oh man, that's great. I had this babysitter when I was growing up. She was pretty old. I would guess she was probably like in her 70s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she was a great woman. And her and her husband watched me, Dolly and Frank Basker. They both passed now, I'm pretty sure. They're great people. But she was telling me one time, I think I was 13 or 14, so I was actually like paying attention. And they were talking about marijuana. And she was saying she went to some class for being a babysitter, and part of this class was put on by the Aurora Police Department, and they showed people in the class marijuana. They passed around actual weed to the people in the class, so they could smell it and familiarize themselves with it, because they're babysitters, and we have to keep kids safe and all that. And she said, when I smelled it, I remembered that smell. That my grandfather used to smoke. We used to smoke that, and it's like something else, man. So that when her grandfather was around, that was probably like the 1930s. So he was ripping bowls in America
Legally
back then.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because, what was it, Prohibition on weed didn't start until, 37? 38?
Have you seen that Reefer Madness film?
I own that Reefer Madness film, and whenever I want a good chuckle, I watch it. Because the stuff that they're saying is just so... I mean, it's... When you understand that it's propaganda...
Yeah.
It is just hilarious. I mean, I was chuckling the whole time, especially when the girl runs and throws herself out the window. I'm like, who would do that?
Take off from the ground, you asshole!
Yeah.
Don't go out the window.
Well,
if you think you can fly, start from the ground.
well, you telling that story reminds me of a South Park episode, which I adored. I believe it's from the first season, where Mr. Mackey, who is the school counselor, comes in and starts talking to the kids. Okay, kids, now drugs are bad, okay? Now I'm going to pass around some marijuana so that you can know what it smells like. And so, he takes this little, it's like a petri dish with a, half a smoked joint, and he's passing it around. And he gets back up to the front, and he's like, now, all right, now, children, I need you to tell me, okay, where did the marijuana cigarette go? He ends up getting fired, goes and has a stoned adventure, comes back. It's a good episode. But
that's a real early one.
That reminds me of that so much. Because, I mean, I'm going to pass this joint around. Yeah, how many people, honestly, aren't going to know, A, what that smells like, or B, aren't going to take it? I'm terrible. Oh, Dare, this week, removed marijuana as a gateway drug.
Did they? That's
Yeah.
progress. Good job, Normal.
Okay, now here's the deal. Everybody who worked for Dare was a pothead. Because you joined Dare to avoid suspicion so you could smoke. At least that's what I have been told by every officer who was a Dare officer.
Is that right? That's great.
So, and Dare doesn't stand for what you think it does. It stands for drugs are really expensive.
It was a joke. I mean, the whole thing was a joke
now.
from the beginning. Well, yeah, that's true, I suppose. I am going to. We have brought to mind something that I really.
Oh, we haven't even done an intro for this episode yet, have we?
Not really.
I don't remember. Maybe I did earlier.
You know what? It doesn't matter.
We haven't. We need to load the bowl.
We do need to load the bowl.
Welcome to the Bowl30 podcast.
And here's the Bowl30
with Evan and Luke. You can connect with us at bowl30podcast@gmail.com. I dropped that earlier.
Hold on. I'm going to put some music. Well, it's not music necessarily, but it's something that will help get us in the mood. It's a it's a wonderful poem by a man named Shel Silverstein, who, if you have not read his books, I would highly suggest it. They're wonderful for children, some of them are, such as A Light in the Attic, Where the Sidewalk Ends, Falling Up, everything on it. Those are excellent for everybody in the family. He got his start writing for Playboy, and he has another series that is all of stuff from Playboy, but one of my favorites is what is it? It's like the ABCs. He does an ABCs thing, and the one that I can't get out of my mind is K. K is for keys. See Daddy sleeping on the couch? See the keys sticking out of his pocket? Where do you think those keys go to? Do you think maybe we could drive around with those keys? Do you think we could open the liquor cabinet with those keys? Let's find out. I mean, just kind of
That's from Playboy?
Yeah, that's Shel Silverstein, and he's phenomenal. I
had the where the sidewalk ends, and I think I had another one of his books too. He didn't do the drawing, did he?
Yeah,
he did. He did drawing for Playboy then too, right?
Uh-huh.
So in some of those early Playboys, you can see his poem. He did poetry for Playboy. Robert Anton Wilson did articles. He did the politic articles for Playboy. Did you know that?
Yes.
So,
Playboy.
Man.
I mean, here's the thing. Playboy actually was a fantastic magazine. I would say about late 80s is when it started becoming crap. But I have Playboys going back to the late 60s, and I still read all of the articles and the short stories in them because.
Did you hear that, guys? Lucas reads the articles in Playboy.
Oh. I quit.
Sorry, I have to say what everyone's thinking. Don't quit.
Oh, come on, where the hell? Here it is. Okay, so the name it's 6 minutes and 29 seconds, and if it doesn't come across on the recording, I will have it up on the website. I'm pretty sure I can get the rights to it so that people can see this. Otherwise, The Great Smoke Off by Shel Silverstein.
Oh, no shit. Is that performed by him?
Yes. He did the guitar. He did the whole thing. He actually.
That's quite an intense performance that he puts on. It's almost like too much for me. Like especially
really?
once we started smoking when that
Oh,
started. Like as I was coming up on my high, it was almost like somewhat toxic just because of how intense he is. But it's really well done. Absolutely.
It
fits his style, you know. Like you could pick it out of a lineup, you know.
Yeah.
Easy.
I apologize if I have put you off the mood. Then, so
no, I love it. I always love taking my brain to different places and seeing how fast I can get it back to another emotional state. It's a skill that's good to practice.
Yeah.
When you smoke. And it's very late.
And
you don't want to make too much noise, or you'll scare your neighbors awake. And the police will come and take you away, and then you'll have nothing left to bake.
Oh.
I pulled that off, huh?
I like that.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
I'm like fucking channeling, what's his name?
We can trademark that one?
What is it, Silverstein?
Shel Silverstein.
Shel Silverstein?
He's always been a favorite of mine. There's too many kids in this tub.
His books are just fun to have.
Yeah.
They're just like, if you're in a shitty mood, you can pick his book off of the shelf and you'll feel differently. There's just so much good poetry in there. I think we might have to cut it out. What they do. Ugh.
What?
Yeah, like Joe on Joe Rogan's podcast, whenever like people are like they'll start playing stuff and you're like, okay, we have to stop it now. Because like you can only like sample so much before.
Well, that's why I think I might be able to get the rights to it.
But what's crazy is YouTube actually does. They have like a search algorithm that compares like content that you load against like existing content. So if you load up something that is, ultimately it's just that the numbers are identical.
Jesus Christ, how long is
the
this?
The binary code, so they're just sifting through binary code and looking for examples of like the same code showing.
Yeah, well, that's what digital rights? No, yeah, DRM. That's what it's called, I think. DRM, which is DMCA.
Yeah, DMCA.
Digital Millennium Copyright Act compliant. What it does is everything that is copyrighted has something in it, and there's a way you can strip it off. But I mean that doesn't make it legal.
Yeah, I mean
doesn't make it legal.
But it actually looks at the content because like that's how they would like flag our video, or our video, if it's monetized, that monetization can get taken away.
Yes.
But it's like, can you imagine like if we produced, like, think about this logically here. If we produced content, this is one of the problems with YouTube, and we play their song for 6 minutes of our 3-hour podcast.
Yeah.
And then they get all of the revenue for it? No, they should get 6 minutes divided by how many minutes our podcast is and get that fraction, or maybe twice it.
Yeah.
But they shouldn't be able to take all of your ad revenue for sampling their shit. Like I get, like they should get paid for it. And YouTube has a system to pay them, so pay them like their fair share for that usage. To take that that ad revenue. Like, because on our videos, we could have probably like 15 ads that would pop up as it's going, and it would translate into us getting a really small amount of money and making it worth it for us to keep doing this podcast. And we don't know. But we're starting out. We're on episode 5. This might end. So if you're running an ad blocker, like, get rid of that shit. Like, that's you're stealing. You're basically keeping money from getting to your creators. So if you love the people that you listen to, and you think the content that you're watching on YouTube, if it's worthy of getting paid, that your time is worthy to be paid to that person. So it's actually YouTube valuing your time. If you want your time valued and have that value transferred to the people whose content you watch, that you consume, turn off your ad blocker. Like, show the love. Subscribe, I used to never subscribe to anybody like on YouTube because it'll just show up anyways in recommended videos.
Yeah.
But like more recently, I'm like, shit, I should be subscribing to these people's videos and liking them and then leaving a comment. And like that helps. If I like something and I want other people to see it, that's how you do it.
Yeah.
That's like the little effort that you can make. And if you're actually listening to this shit and you've made it into episode 5 into listening this far, take the 10 seconds to do it. I mean, if we're giving you hours of a peek into our life and being a fly on the wall for our conversations, and we love making the content for you, and support the people. Help do your part. Not just for us, for everybody.
I want to disagree with you. I mean,
Well, you should, if you do.
And I'm trying to figure out why it is that struck me.
Like negatively?
Well, not negatively. Just I don't think that there is that much. I don't like the way that advertising works on the internet, and I am a big fan of ad blockers.
Bravo to you, man. And I get it. Like, if you're don't run away from our podcast because I still love you as an audience member. If you use up an ad blocker, I get it.
Well,
I understand the philosophy behind it, and if you're going through the trouble, and you have your reasons for doing it, cool. If you want to be an extra cool person on top of that, I get it. If you, especially if you're watching something you don't like, turn your ad blocker on. But have a switch for that thing. If you're so if you're so cool, be extra cool, and turn that thing off when you're watching shit that you like. So you help out your content creators.
Okay, yeah, I can agree with that. That I agree with. I think that the pay structure and the way that ads work is not the way that it should be. I hope that this is getting picked up.
It is.
Okay. I feel that the best advertising, it has always been the best advertising, and ad men have been trying to poke holes in this one for years. The best ad there is word of mouth.
Or it's just showing up in front of you on your computer screen when you're on YouTube.
Well, that's the new way. But
that's pretty good delivery there.
How often do people actually watch what shows right up in front of them?
I do it all the time.
Okay, I don't.
but I watch YouTube a lot.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, we are from two different demographics in this particular. Well, actually, just completely. I mean, I'm 39, single, never been, huge long-term relationship.
You're smart.
No, I'm not. See, my heart would disagree with you on that one.
It's always that way, though. If whatever side of the fence you're on, you're going to have feelings about the other side of the fence and the desires to be there.
Oh, yeah.
It's it's like every time you're in a relationship, every so often you'll ponder
were things really so bad alone?
I could totally get somebody better than this person, or these attributes that I don't like so much are really annoying, and there's no way that I would find the same set in somebody else, and I would prefer to try those the other options.
Okay, fair enough. I dig.
And those feelings I think they can be a lot stronger when you're single about wanting to be in a relationship and to have somebody. But there's things that happen when you're single that probably won't happen if you're in a really committed relationship, if you're sharing space with somebody, if you're living together. And I think a lot of that comes down to experiencing life as a single person opens the door for a lot of selfishness that can be very, very useful for growing one's spirit and growing wisdom and developing your mind and thinking better. Our brains are incredible machines that whatever you're doing, you're constantly getting better at doing it. Your brain is getting better at doing it. If you're watching TV, your brain gets better and better at doing that.
Sure.
And focusing on it and really absorbing the information that is coming in. Or if you ride a bike a whole bunch and you're a downhill mountain bike racer, the more you do that, the better you're going to get at it. You develop those skills, and
I'm getting what you're saying, because when you're in a relationship, half of your brain's resources are going somewhere else. You are looking out for more than just yourself.
Yeah, you don't have the ability to just focus on you.
And every decision that you make and every choice has to account for that other half.
I mean,
or well, not half, maybe
all
even the
this
third.
equates to
Family.
time
Yeah.
spent thinking about other things, about these things. That like a chunk of your thinking time of your daily life goes away. That you would have to allocate for other things. Like if you I spent probably a week at a time I listened to like probably almost everything on YouTube from Robert Anton Wilson. Phenomenally interesting, and there's truths that you can. I don't know. There's a lot of growing that a mind can encounter in a lifetime.
Well, but it's not that one is better than the other. They're just different.
Well, it's like a development of your mind, the what we call wisdom, and that's attained from learning. So because the more that you learn, the better you get at learning, and that learning applies to how you observe things and how those observations are processed and how far you can look down you can start to predict the future in front of you. You know what's going to happen with your friends' relationships after you've seen what happens with other people's relationships. Like after people get married, if you haven't had anybody around you that's gotten married, like usually after the wedding, the people are all drunk and you're like hanging out with them at like some after party. The bride and groom have gone away in a fancy car, and everyone's hanging around and maybe doing drugs, at some undisclosed locations, and everybody starts like the conversation comes up like, oh, how long do you think it's going to last? People will place bets. I mean, I've heard of that happening, on how long the relationship will last, and like there's people that can predict that pretty efficiently, and that's from usually those people are really observant people. Sometimes they're quieter people because they're spending time listening more, like in group environments. If you listen and you observe and you really live in that moment, if you're not always distracted and on your cell phone, like if you're hanging out with your friend and both of you guys are like looking at your cell phones because you don't even like know what to talk about. I mean, imagine what you could be doing. You could be talking about really cool shit and how the mind works, or even talking about events of like what's happened with people around you, and thinking about like time periods that occur, and then you can predict like who's going to be president. And I'll tell you what, I predicted that Donald Trump was going to win the presidency the day that he announced that he was running. I was talking to my uncle. I should call him and put it on speaker sometime. I'll record it for the show, talking to him.
Okay, sure.
To confirm it. But I'm pretty damn sure I told him, I was like, I'm really positive he will probably win. Because I thought that just on the fact of it's a popularity contest, right? Yeah. Isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, somehow you can win a popularity contest without having the popular vote, but ultimately it is a regionally divided with varying degrees of impact per population based on some older rules contest that he won. And I also predicted that the Broncos would win the Super Bowl. I think it was like the first or second game in the season. And I actually bet somebody in my building that. And he gave me, I was like, I'll bet you the Broncos will win the Super Bowl. What odds will you give me? And this guy's a Broncos fan. And he's like, I don't know, how much do you want to bet? I'm like, I want to bet like $15. He's like, I'll give you 3 times odds.
That's
so
not bad.
He wound up paying me $45 on that.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. But I made that bet purely based on conspiracy theories about the NFL rigging games.
Oh, yeah.
That was totally based on that, because I was like, okay, Peyton Manning's going to retire. He's a superstar. They have motive, right? Like, whenever you have a superstar, then you get those superstar sales of jerseys, and it's good for the numbers to retire somebody like that in that sort of a fashion. And like you could see the frustration on Cam Newton's face when he like threw his arms to the ground. I mean, you could see you could see that he was crushed. Like he was heartbroken. The man was absolutely heartbroken. He was like experiencing the physical ailment of having a broken heart, and you can see it in the replays of it. Because I mean, when I was watching that game, I'm like, oh, the refs are like cheating. Basically, the refs are calling everything against Cam Newton's team.
Okay,
all the way through it. You didn't watch it.
You're talking gibberish to me. I am the only sport that I have even a remote interest in is rugby.
Really?
It's civilized.
Is it?
Oh yeah, very, very civilized.
Well, anyways, to finish off the whole Broncos thing,
yeah.
basically the end-all be-all is, I think that, well, it's a fact that the NFL can rig games and they're not breaking any laws doing so. It's not illegal for them to rig games. It's not.
I don't see
Then
why it would
rigging
be.
games is not a violation of the contract that is on the back of like every ticket, which is basically that you are guaranteed a seat to a game. You know, that's it. It doesn't say a fair game that's not rigged.
No,
you know,
it's a non-profit organization. That actually retroactively.
Yeah, it's a charity. It's like just so absurd, isn't it?
No, it's not charity. It's just a non-profit organization.
And I think a few of the other sports teams are, or sport leagues. I think that
I wouldn't be surprised. If you retroactively apply that theory, it makes sense as to why the Broncos won the Super Bowl in '97 and '98.
as well.
Because John Elway was about to retire.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely, I don't know. People really don't like hearing that.
Well,
Football fans, like every time I've ever told a football fan about the conspiracy theory that the NFL rigs games, and there's other motive too. Like there's been a lot of people that have moved to Colorado recently, so you've got an influx of population that like you need to incorporate those people into the society around them. And like I think the people that are more inclined to actually become like a sports fan are people that are like that are transplants to like a new area, and they want some form of community. And then they're like, "Oh, sports, Broncos, woohoo!"
Well, it's a very common thing. It's an entertainment that a lot of people enjoy.
But their goal is to grow their fan base, right?
Yeah. And
So
so the best way.
it's all about the new money. Like, where's the new money to be made? What's changed that we can capitalize on?
If you look at that picture, I mean, it's funny. Have you been to the what's it called? The correlation website. What is it? The something correlation. It's like unrelated correlations. Where people have just sifted through, I mean, just billions of pieces of data, and found these interesting correlations. Like there is a direct correlation to. Oh crap! What was it? I mean, it's just absolutely hilarious. It's like a median family income or something, and Nicolas Cage doing well in a movie. Or there is an inverse relationship to, knife sales and the
O.J. Simpson
purchase of bubble gum in store. I mean, just these weird, unrelated things, but they correlate, even though they really don't correlate, but they do. The data shows that they do.
Yeah, the whole thing of breaking correlation and causality, right?
But the funny thing is, they might not be as unrelated as we think that they are. Have you heard of Freakonomics?
Yeah, Freakonomics is freaking awesome. That guy's So it's kind of interesting. So it's a duo.
Yeah.
It's a guy that's basically a genius that probably has Asperger's or something, and I think he says that as well, or he has a form of autism. I think.
Could be.
I could be wrong. Allegedly, that's what you're supposed to say at the podcast if you're not sure, and you're making something that could be slanderous. Allegedly.
Allegedly.
And then a guy that's kind of a little bit more business savvy, but also a trained scientist.
I'm trying to think of their names.
What is that sound?
Freed something. That's the microwave.
It's angry.
At least I think it's the microwave. If it's not the microwave, it's the oven. I don't know where the oven will be on.
Watch him like go in the kitchen and find like that he actually baked bread while he was in the kitchen last time. I forgot about it. Me and my brother used to get stoned, and you would always know if you like got really baked because you would like wake up in the morning and like go throw like a breakfast burrito in the microwave or open the microwave and you'd see like food that was left in there from last night. Yeah. It's like, so he started the microwave and then he started eating something else. Oh, it's doing it again. What is it? Is it a smoke detector?
Oh, it's the fridge.
Oh, I left his fridge open. Dude, I left a fridge open that was full of like a whole shitload of experiments that like the amount of money that went into them, because it was in a lab I was working at Montana State University in Bozeman. And I was working in this lab, right? And they have they're like negative 80 degree freezers. Mm-hmm. And the PhD that I was working under, he turned the alarms off on them because, I don't know, they're annoying or something. Like they turn on if the temperature would go up to like, if the temperature got down or up to negative 50 or something, the alarm would sound, and then it would just continually sound even if you close the door. Like you could, it would go off when it wasn't necessary, right? So he turned them off. So here I am, like, you know, a first year biotech student and working in the lab under a work study program. I think I got paid like $14 an hour, but the federal government paid like $10 an hour of it, and then he would pay like $4 an hour of it. It's really something, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I was like extracting RNA out of barley. Yeah, so noodles, like you can make noodles out of barley, right? And but the noodles will be yellow, and like they were doing this research to kind of open the markets of using barley as a stock crop for making white noodles that would be very sellable over in Asia and hit the Asian markets, but their yellow noodles are no good. So there's an enzyme that's produced that makes them turn yellow, and that enzyme is called polyoxidase, I think. And like you can use like an acid to neutralize it. So you know how you would use lemons on guacamole to prevent it from going brown. Like that browning that occurs there is the same browning that goes on in if you were making noodles out of barley. So we were trying to isolate a specific gene or some shit to, you know, genetically modify, I guess.
I'm just gonna.
But I like planted barley, and like they had these huge they had this huge room in the ag department. I mean, it was like the size of a football field indoors, and there were just all of these containers. They look like giant refrigerators, but they're little like self-contained grow rooms with temperature regulation and lights and rafters that are mechanized to go up and down. But it's basically this equipment that's especially made for experimenting with plants. Really, you wouldn't really use this for production of crops. I mean, you could, but I mean, it's like growing fruit on the space station, you know.
Vertical farming.
Right, and these things were, you know, the size of a fridge. Some of them were like 10, or I would say maybe like 8 foot tall, but some of them were only like 4.5 foot tall.
Okay, yeah.
And they're, you know, 3.5 feet wide usually, and like 2.5 foot deep. And I'd plant barley in trays of soil that would go into there, and that was pretty much my job. And every once in a while I'd do some crazy shit in the lab and follow charts and do all these procedures under a fume hood. Pretty cool.
And left the fridge open.
Yeah, and one day I left the fridge open, and then the postdoc came in, or the doctorate that I was working under, and he was like from Sweden, and he was kind of quiet, and he spoke with an accent, and he was like, "Oh, who left the fridge open?" That's probably not a good impersonation. Yeah, he was pretty pissed at me about that. And I'm like, sorry. He's like, sorry about that.
Yes.
Try not to do that again. He's like, oh, everything should be okay. He like ran off and like got some special thermometer to test his samples. But like I almost ruined like 8 years of their work by like leaving a fridge open for like, I left it open for like 5 minutes or something. And it wasn't open. It was like cracked.
Yes.
It was closed, but it wasn't like, I didn't fully latch it or something.
Did they turn the alarms back on?
But he was pissed, but he wasn't pissed for very long. It didn't take him very long. It was a very brief period of time before he blamed himself for it. It's my fault. It's actually my fault because I turned the alarms off. I shouldn't have turned the alarms off.
Well, I mean,
it's pretty nice.
That is very nice. I mean, I'm glad that he came around. I mean,
it's like any time that you get pissed off about pretty much anything, you can always kind of like find a place.
In through the nose, out through the mouth. In with Gandhi, out with Hitler.
Out with there you go.
And this will be hit upon, and people will probably get sick of me saying this. Breathing is very important.
Yeah, it can be hard to do under certain circumstances.
That is when it is most important.
Yeah. The thing is, it happens, and like the breath is crazy because it's like I think it's one of the only functions of the body that is both like
Voluntary
automatic
and involuntary.
Yeah, it's like super weird. It kind of like floats in between the two.
Well, the interesting thing is, if you control your breath, you can control all of the other parts of your body.
If you think about the fact that you're breathing, and then like you can't stop thinking about it.
That's a good thing.
Like who's breathing your lungs right now? Is it you, or is it the reptile in your brain? I think it's the reptilian brain that does that involuntary.
If I'm not mistaken, it's controlled by the medulla oblongata.
The breath is the involuntary breath.
If I'm not mistaken,
Damn.
I could very well be mistaken.
If you're right about that, that's awesome. But that's
or is it the cerebellum?
I'm
gonna have to.
And neither of us are gonna like look it up on the internet either.
I'm gonna have to go online and check this one out. I'm sorry. Freakonomics was by Stephen Levitt and Stephen. Oh crap! No, I can't. Dubner. D-U-B.
Steve and Steve. They did a TEDx talk too, which is really good. It kind of gets into more of their personal life. What's interesting? It was fairly difficult to find any of their content. Like there's short clips on YouTube, but you have to like pay YouTube Red to watch their content on there.
Really?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a bunch of paid content.
All right, should I go to the insurance website, the pharmaceutical website, or Wikipedia? I'm going to Wikipedia. Wow. I wonder if If you were to just sit there and browse the internet all day and tell people about what you had to go through to find the things that you found, and what crap you had to sift through first. I mean,
yeah, that's a skill just on its own.
Does everybody
not clicking
do that?
on the wrong thing?
Yeah,
Dude, I love it when someone like says something and it's like a common misnomer, and you tell them that, and then they're like, "No, it's not," and then they're like, "Here, I'll look it up on Google right now," and I'm like, "Okay," and they'll type it in, and then they'll like read. They won't even click on the web page, and they'll just read that little excerpt that shows up in the search result, and then they'll read it, and I'll be like, "Well, click on the page at least," and then like you click on the page, and then it's like the next line is a common misconception.
Yeah.
You know, I've had that happen before. It's like the funniest thing in the world.
That's yeah. Well, we also don't like to dig into things. We like surface.
Yeah. Well, we don't like being wrong either.
No.
And we don't like being duped or feeling like we're duped. You know, in our Lost episode, we were talking about an alien video. One of what I thought was the best pieces of evidence for extraterrestrial life, which is the STS-75 video. And you can go on YouTube and search STS-75 to see it, but basically there's a tether, which is an experimental instrument that is being expanded out from the space station. So it's kind of like an accordion of like really thin metal, and and it makes like a box sort of a frame, a box wire frame, but it extends out and it's like 11 miles long or something. It's like a really fascinating experiment that they were doing.
Well, this
And
thing
it
is
was going to produce electricity for the space station. The idea was that it would collect radiant energy. So it was like a crazy smart invention. And I might be wrong about this because I haven't read it, but I've heard that it produced too much power, and that's why it broke. That it the electricity current, I guess, severed the metal. Or something like that. But it starts floating away, and there's what appears to be floating around this tether as it's kind of like a ruler in space that's floating away. That is probably about 10 miles long. There's all of these spheres, or they almost look like discs with like holes in the middle of them and a little notch on the end. And there's tons of YouTube videos that go over like how they all move and stuff. But there's also some videos out there that explain why it's a camera phenomenon, and that these objects that you're seeing are actually probably about like 30 feet from the space station. But up until about like 2 weeks ago, not even 2 weeks ago, like 4 days ago, I had thought that this video was like. I mean, I recently told people, and I've known about this video for probably like 7 or 8 years. I've probably told like 150 people about this. I've probably convinced people that aliens are real with this video. Probably, and then imagine how many people those people have convinced, There's probably a whole shit ton of people out there that think the STS-75 video is the best piece of extraterrestrial existence out there.
Well, and don't get me wrong, there are some things on there that are moving in a strange manner, but for the most part, they really look like artifacting on the camera. And when they zoom out, you can see the change in the way that the reflections of the lenses. Because you have to remember, when you're looking at things through a camera,
well, we shouldn't ruin it for them, Lucas. We should, if they want to believe that it's real, go for it. I did it for 9 years. All right, if you want to believe it's real, but no, Lucas is definitely right. So let the cat out of the bag on that. I mean,
sorry,
there is a critical point where they adjust the focus. They zoom in and then they adjust the focus. And what is it? The spheres are some of them that are large.
They get smaller. But they look like they're blinking, and all that is like the rotation of this microscopic.
I think it's water.
It could be water.
Spinning.
That's also very possible.
I mean,
but it's something that's crazy out of focus. And there's Bigfoot videos that are, I mean, I've seen a number of them where people are going apeshit on YouTube, like, oh my god, it's like the best new, like, Bigfoot jumping from a tree to a tree. Pretty much every time people see, like, and you say, like, oh look, you can see it, it's jumping, this thing is, and you see it, and it's like there's something that is moving from this tree to that tree, and you can, you know, sometimes they're 15, 20 frames long, or even maybe 150 frames long, where you can see this black object moving about. But what it is it's a leaf that's just, it's actually probably pretty close.
I want everybody to look up forced perspective at this point. Yes, this is an interactive kind of
there's some
podcast.
really, have you seen the YouTube videos on forced perspective?
Oh, they're phenomenal. But one of my favorite uses of it, the first, I think it was the first use of it, well, the first commercial use of it, Metropolis, a movie from 1930, a very long time ago, one of the very first films. It was done in Germany. I think it was Germany.
Probably.
And it's just it was a look at the future. What is the future going to look like? And some of the stuff that they pulled off was, I mean, even today it still looks impressive. The way that they shot it, the way that they put things in different perspectives, and we use it today. I mean, almost everywhere. It's a,
well, the way Kubrick shot the moon landing is phenomenal.
In with Salman Rushdie, out with Genghis Khan.
It's best. If you're into conspiracy theories, it's definitely best to state them as fact. Like, to make huge jumps in logic like that. to just hammer it home.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, the moon landing conspiracies are fantastic. They are some of the best conspiracy theories because of the absolute lack of evidence, and the evidence that they do have it's great. It points to possibilities. Like, with a little bit of, you take the evidence there and you mix in some conjecture with a certain perspective on it, and you'll come out with the solution of, oh, there's definitely something going on here. Like, you can between drawing these lines and these lines that, you know, this shows this. I don't know. There is some pretty interesting footage of men in spacesuits, like, bouncing around. Mm-hmm. Like, some of that is what the people that don't believe we landed on the moon.
I find the most compelling piece of evidence for the contrary. I mean, I am open to the possibility, I will admit that I am wrong, but the most compelling piece of evidence that I have found to support the view that we have been actively working in space is that even with the best of the best of the best of the technical crews and the technology of the day, they could not fake it. The stuff that they showed, the stuff that happened.
That's definitely, and that opinion that you presented is one that's growing a lot. Like, I've heard that quite a bit lately.
And I want to point you to Kubrick. I mean, because you bring him up, and he's a phenomenal director, excellent movie maker. Oh, the man could take an emotion, twist it around, shove it up your nose, and then make you happy that it happened. I love Kubrick.
But he was also, like, an expert with film and cameras and shooting scenes, and he developed a method of, I think it's called, is it, I can't think of the name of it, but if you look into the conspiracy theories involving Kubrick in the moon landing, he talked about a method of filming where you've got the background I have to look at it. I think there's something about perspective in the name. I don't think it's forced perspective though. It's anyways.
Okay.
If the moon landing was fake, like this method of filming would have definitely had to have been used for the scene of the lander going down onto the moon.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he actually did. I think he filmed something like that in another movie that was just basically almost the exact same thing.
Well, that's why I bring him up. 2001. A Space
I think there's a
Odyssey.
landing scene in there, isn't there?
Hold on.
Or am I confusing it with this other work, the real moon landing?
Okay, so they fly to the space station, then they send them off in the thing to. Nope, there's no landing sequence in that one.
No.
But the way that they did it looked so amazingly fantastic that it was phenomenal. But you can tell that it's not real.
There are ways of there's. And that's the crazy thing about the conspiracy theory. If you like really approach this from the conspiracy, from the belief that yes, it's fake, and I'm going to find all of the videos that help me support that theory.
Uh-huh.
There's backgrounds that like match up in places that they shouldn't, and there's hallmarks of it being like a movie set, and there's no stars in the background in the sky. I mean, like there's. I'm not 100% in either direction on the first landing, like being faked, or portions of it being faked, or imagine if they like went up there and then their camera stopped working, and they go and they land and they film and they shoot footage like on the surface of the moon, but their camera for the landing, like they didn't have that, right? Like they lost that, and then they're like, okay, Kubrick, can you make this for us, and we'll just use it as the footage.
Well, that's actually one of the most prominent reasons why it could have been faked,
or some portion of it.
All of the original.
Like it doesn't have to be.
Oh no!
Like
I mean,
all of it or none of it, but
all of the original footage is gone. Nobody knows where it went. Nobody knows if it even existed.
They like copied over shit too.
I mean, it's
a clusterfuck.
Oh yeah. Oh,
is what it is. And like the Kennedy assassination is as well.
Didn't they finally decide that there was no second gunman?
Well,
recently.
So like the government definitely is still sticking to their gun theory and their magic bullet theory with its magic bullet.
Okay.
Theory, but
even though they found the other bullet.
I mean, I've seen like 7 or 8 documentaries about the Kennedy assassination. There's some of them you watch the whole thing, and you're like, God, that is so right, But then you like watch another one, and they're talking about like different evidence and different people, and there's not even like anything close to a consensus on the conspiracy theory side of it. There's like basically like 15 different conspiracy theories easily on the Kennedy assassination with a documentary to go along with it.
Well, maybe 3 or 4 for each one.
And that also could be a hallmark of what do they call that? A disinformation campaign, like the government or corporations hiring people to create content and fake conspiracy theories to muddy the waters.
Yeah, but I mean, what's the point? I mean, honestly,
I honestly think that's what's happened with the JFK conspiracy. I think that there is like one of the videos out there. I'm not going to tell you which one it is. You guys can guess. You can watch them all, and you can tell me which one I think it is. But there's one of them where like I think they present only facts that are like truly prevalent and startling. I think there's a lot of things that are missed though in that documentary. But that's more new discoveries in some pictures and matching up of faces of certain people.
I mean, that's the thing
And
that
the
you
CIA and
have
shit.
to do in these circumstances is you cannot come at it with any expectations, and you
Dude,
have
imagine if
to
you sick
examine
AI on it.
everything.
Imagine if you sick AI on these problems.
Hmm.
And you're like, here's all the information, all the pictures of everybody that's ever done anything that's like, you know, and then here's all the video footage of all CCTV
Okay.
crimes and assaults and everything, and solve them.
That's kind of scary.
Dude.
See, now that's going into. Have you seen?
It's amazing that they aren't just like spontaneously arresting people that like assaulted people,
Well,
6 months before. I bet that they are doing some interesting stuff.
well, Minority Report. But have you seen Person of Interest?
No.
Excellent show. I don't like Jim Caviezel. I really don't. He
It's
just
a television show?
he just rubs me the wrong way.
Do you
But
know
anyway,
who makes it?
CBS?
A CBS one or an ABC or NBC?
Yeah, it's one of the big three. But this guy with Asperger's sits and watches video footage from closed circuit televisions from around the city all day
Yeah.
long and says, "Okay, you're going to go pick this guy up because he's going to commit a crime today."
It could be done, man.
Oh yeah,
I mean, like-
absolutely. If you could figure out the probability for every single thing that happened for a given circumstance, you could accurately predict the future 99% of the time. I mean, this is what we were talking about
movies
earlier.
all the time.
Yeah.
Like, I've done it with movies in ways that are just crazy.
Well, it's because movies are
Or
formulas.
it's just insane. I was watching
Slit scan photography.
not that whole thing. It's
One-point perspective, which leads the viewer's eye towards the central vanishing point.
I think it's something else, probably further down later in his career, maybe.
Well, this is talking about 2001.
Oh, okay.
Steadicam, yeah, no. Single point perspective, I think, or 1-point perspective. Here, let's take a look at that and see what that says.
Yeah, I think that. Yeah, the 1-point perspective.
yeah.
I'm pretty sure that is.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Damn, dude, I killed off a bunch of facts or parts of facts in my brain.
I'm sorry.
Well, it's all right. Sometimes you fill in the gaps for our listeners.
Killed off facts.
Yeah. You know, like when you start filling up your brain and you like it reaches the full point, and then you start adding more information after it's full. Some of the information spills out. It like spills out into the ether, and then like people around you can pick it up and deliver it back to you, or maybe you'll pick it up a little bit later, like you'll walk through it or something, and you just leave it in that part of your room.
Isn't it funny that when we go to look for things that we've lost, we tend to return to spots that we have already looked?
Yeah, over and over again.
Isn't that fascinating?
It's sad.
Well,
We're like do 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 do.
I wonder if that's. Because I guess it's something that I do. I'm just making the presumption that everybody else does that too. When I say we, I guess I'm just meaning I.
Yeah.
I apologize for the disambiguation.
The disambiguation. Yeah, I probably learned what that meant like 4 years ago.
I think I figured it out when I started reading Wikipedia.
Yeah. It's weird how we like learn about words. Like I used to be when I was in high school, I was good at like math, and like that's how I managed to graduate. I think was just on math skills. But I actually got a perfect math SAT score. I got an 800 on my math SAT. But the truth is, that was the third time I took it.
Oh.
And like I figured out, like I kind of like figured out a little hack that like my GPA was so shitty. I had like a 2.3 GPA that I couldn't go to like even like the state schools, right? Like there's no way I could get into CSU with my grades, right? Or CU. And I applied to both of them and they rejected me. Okay. But I realized that I could get like a huge scholarship at Montana State University if I had an SAT score of like more than like 1440 or 1420.
Okay, yeah.
But like when I took it the first time, I think I got like a 530 on the English and like a 670 on the math. And I was like, damn, I knew I could do better than that. So I went and bought a book that had like 10 SAT tests in it, right? And I just went through and just filled out the test and just graded myself, and all I did was focus on the math. And then like the next time I took the test, I got like a 710, and then I took it another time after like doing a few more tests, and I got an 800 on it. And then I gave the book to one of my friends, and I told him what I did. And he did the same thing, and he got an 800 on the math SAT. And I just barely got that scholarship because like the best score I ever got on the English was a 530. And like, so since then, since high school, since I guess I never paid attention in English class or like really cared to learn what words meant and cared to get into that, like now I try to expand my vocabulary every day, you know, and there's you know, when you're with somebody and they like say some word that you don't know, there's something that like, you know, people feel like they're cutting themselves down by being like, wait, what does that word mean? You know, that you're dropping your position below somebody. Like, especially like if you're in a job, let's say you're wearing a suit, you know, and like you don't want to admit that like you don't know something to your boss, but you know, you could find yourself in a predicament that way for sure. But in reality, if you stop them to say, oh, just about anybody, and you say, wait, what does that word mean? They'll appreciate you doing that because they know that there's a whole bunch of words that they don't know. And like there's like a respect thing going on there. You know, there's like a trust thing that goes on there too. When you can expose that when you're able to expose your ignorance to other people without any worry about it, it builds trust between people. Do it. Just do it. Have you ever seen that actor when he does that? He's like, just do it. Just do it. He's I'm not sure what his name is. It's pretty funny.
Is this a while ago?
Yeah, a couple years ago. I can't even think of what movie he's in. That's how much I care. No, he's a pretty funny character because he's given lectures on how like he's given like secret lectures to groups of friends of his, and like somebody filmed it and it got out. But he's got like a PowerPoint presentation going on, and he's like lecturing about like the environment and how everything's getting poisoned in the food supply. He's the guy that put the bag over his head that said like, I am not a celebrity. That's how I can find him really easy.
I put a bag. Wait.
At an award show.
At an award show. Okay, I was going to say that's a Simpsons joke. An author does that. Crap.
I'm searching it right now. Shia LaBeouf.
Oh.
Shia LaBeouf.
Good lord.
Dude, I gotta respect someone like him for diving into it.
He's not a bad guy. I'm just sick and tired of people just being dicks.
Well, he's like done like a Maria. I don't know if he like is friends with Maria Abramovich or what, but he's done like a performance art thing where he sat in a room and let people come in and like do whatever they wanted to him.
I think I heard about that.
And like he had and then like spend like 30 minutes with him and like talk to him, and he was just acting like really weird.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if he came up with that on his own or if he's like part of like the Red Princesses clan under Maria Abramovich. Are you familiar with her?
She's the one who does the really strange,
like satanic shit.
Yeah.
Right. Like in the Podesta emails, it came out that she invited John Podesta to her house for a spirit cooking. That was like in the news, pretty big. I don't know if you saw. Did you see that headline?
No. I don't watch the news. I get news from other sources.
So there was. Well, it was all over Drudge Report, man.
I get news from other sources.
No.
Keep in mind, Mr. Drudge is just trying to get hits.
He does a damn good job of it too. There's one way that he really multiplies his hits, like many times over, and that's by how the links are set up. That when you hit the link, it takes you to that page. It doesn't open it like in a new window. And can't you set it so that when you hit the link, it would open a new tab?
It's supposed to open. I mean, you can have your redirects do that if you want, but I mean it's.
Like I always have to right click and open tab on it.
Yeah,
open a new tab.
It's better for SEO if it just opens in the same window, because when you hit back, it's counted as a new. I believe it's counted as a new hit.
Right, and everybody most people that use Drudge, like my dad uses Drudge a lot, and I watch him use it, and he'll just go back. He'll go to a story and then go back to Drudge. And not like close the tab. So there's like pretty much for every single story that's read on there, regardless of like.
I mean, I'm not actually sure about that, but I believe that that's the way that it works.
But they've hit huge numbers. Like I think they broke 1 billion hits in a year or something like that, or maybe it was a month.
There's a lot of people using the internet, but yeah.
The fact that they have it set up that way definitely contributes to that, like hugely. He's a good businessman. I wonder how much money he makes off of those ads.
We could probably find out.
Yeah,
I'm sure. Is he a public company? Steve Drudge isn't his name?
No, it's Matt Drudge.
Matt Drudge. Why am I thinking Steve? Oh, because of Stephen Levitt and Steve Dubner.
And Steve Jobs. Many Steves so far.
Well, here's a real easy way to do it. Here's the worth of Matt Drudge.
I do go to the Drudge Report probably like twice a day, just to see what's on there.
Let's see.
I also go to Google News, news.google.com, to see what they have on there. But I actually kind of like look at it like a little bit more cynically. Like, what do they choose to have me see first?
Does anybody choose to have you see first? Well, you can turn off the...
Well, it's interesting because Google is showing you stories from many different newspapers on news.google.com. And like you have that homepage experience, and that homepage experience definitely drives views. Whatever is there is going to get a majority of the news traffic.
Yes.
And there's a lot of power in being the website directors these days in shaping culture, right?
But Google shows you what you expect to see. Unless you have the trackers turned off and your adware turned on, Google chooses to show you things that you would want to see.
Well, Google caters results.
Yes.
And so if you compare to like what your friends' Google results for like the same search
would be completely different.
Can be quite a bit different.
Yes. That's why that's actually one of my biggest reasons for
Google
ad blocking
never
and
shows
adware.
me what I want to see ever.
Are you sure?
Especially in the news. Like I definitely want to see way different things in the news. If those things exist out there at all, I mean that's debatable. But
okay, I could go and read one of these articles, but we're looking at about $100 million, $150 million.
A year?
No, that's how much he's worth.
Oh, that's how much he's worth. So if he's worth 150 mil, then you would probably assume
I would say half
he's
a billion.
got to be doing like 15 million a year, probably.
No, I would say half a billion a year.
The website?
Yeah. That's what I would just project off of his net worth.
I don't know. I mean, there's not much ad space on Treasure Report.
Yes, but how much does he charge?
That's a good point, but I don't.
And if he has the numbers to prove it, he can charge whatever he wants. There is no set. I mean, there is kind of a consensus on, well, you charge this much for this and you do this for this.
I would be surprised because he has a banner ad at the top, but it's usually not even like a full banner. And I think there's like one or two on the sides. I mean, I could see them being like maybe 20,000 for like a month, but it could be more. I don't know. I would be surprised if his revenue is more than 50 million a year. I'd be pretty shocked if that website makes more than that, because they don't produce any of their own content. And as far as I know, the only money they're getting is from the few ads that they have on there.
You think so?
I think so.
You don't think that people may pay to put things on that website?
Oh, the other news organizations paying for placement on there?
Because who's going to get more hits? A man with name recognition or some podunk little, newspaper website?
No. Yeah. See, they have a lot of control there, don't they? Those hits add up.
This right here, this is a tangled web that we have woven.
It's an incredible web, There's a lot of people out there that are making money off of their YouTube channels, that are making their living off of it.
I have to.
I mean, thank God, because those people would be totally out of work otherwise.
Well, I gotta circle back again for a moment. Guess who's been named to replace Tom Wheeler at the FCC?
Who?
The anti-net neutrality Ajit Pai.
The person's name is
Ajit Pai, I believe.
That's such an absurd name.
He's Indian.
Oh, okay. But I mean, still, just to hear that, that combination of words, when you said that, I was confused for a second. I'm like, wait, what did you say? Okay, it must be the person's name.
Well,
Ajit Pai.
That's Asian names don't fall on Western ears the same way that other Western names do. Even
That's true.
And African names don't fall on our ears the same way. And I think it's just a regional difference. It's not the sound that we're used to hearing. We're used to hearing, Germanic English
Dude,
sounds.
where does language even come from? That's just think about that. How does that happen?
Really?
Just
You don't know?
phenomenal.
There's this huge story about it. There was this tower that they built, and everybody spoke the same language, and God was pissed and said, no, you're going to speak different languages. I'm sorry, I can't have you all working together.
Is that in the Bible?
The Tower of Babel.
See what I've missed out on?
We should have just a...
You make me think I wish I went to Sunday school now.
A Bible reading. Well, I went to Catholic high school.
Maybe
so
that's why I'm so stupid, because I didn't go to Catholic high school. There's a lot of valuable lessons. There is a lot of valuable lessons in the Bible. You just can't get away from it. It permeates pop culture over generations. It's worked its way into so many little nuances.
Well,
it shows up in so many places,
Did I tell you my theory about how, 1,000 years from now there are going to be stories about this guy Superman who saved people all the time, and he was the greatest hero of all time, and he's somebody that we should emulate.
Yeah, isn't that Jesus?
Yeah.
Wait, Superman?
So see, I'm just saying. What if there was no, or if there was some guy, he was a sitcom fella, and he just became so popular that, it's just.
Have you ever seen the movie Zeitgeist?
No.
Okay, so Zeitgeist came into popularity at a point in time when there was Google videos, like, and they did. You could see like what the top videos of the day were.
Yeah.
For basically, I don't know, all of the internet. I mean, early on there, it was only Google videos that were like hosted on Google, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And I imagine money and capitalism probably got in the way of that, but it was super awesome while they had it. And like there was a few things that you would see at the top of the list, and one of them was like this movie called Zeitgeist, and I didn't even want to watch it just because the name like was off-putting to me for some reason. I didn't even read the description. I was just like, oh, I'm not sure if I'm going to watch that. But it was like the most watched video of the day one day.
Yeah.
And it went from like 60 million views to like or 60,000 views to like 1.3 million views in a couple days, being at the top of the list there, right? And if you haven't seen Zeitgeist, I highly recommend watching it. It's just, it opens up with there's just a lot of interesting parts to it.
I've never used the word myself because people have used it and I've looked it up and it was just such. I get what you mean about being an unappealing word.
Yeah.
And I've never remembered what it means. I think it
like
means having
time
something
ghost.
to do with being a hipster, but that's what sticks in my mind. And I know that's not
it's
right.
a hipster thing.
So I can't.
You kind of look like a hipster right now, a little bit.
Oh, fuck.
You have a hipster top on at least.
This?
You know what the horrible thing about calling someone a hipster is that like if like my girlfriend called me a hipster the other day, and I was like, damn it, and she's like, you're a hipster, and I looked at myself in the mirror and I'm like, god damn it,
I am.
am I? And like once you start thinking that, you never want to own it. It's one of those ones that you're like, I'm not a hipster.
Well,
You're like, I'm a hipster.
I will say I am a hippie.
You can't go and buy clothes anymore and not be a hipster.
No.
It's just the patterns that they
Well,
produce.
this shirt is almost 10 years old, actually.
You have a 10-year-old shirt? That's awesome. What's the oldest shirt you have? Oh, he's digging deep on this one.
That's a tough one.
I've got one from middle school.
I was looking for my Bible. I couldn't find it, but I did find these. Catherine asked me about those. So.
Oh, really?
So I said I would give them, loan them.
Fantastic.
In her own time.
Smoke and Mirrors.
Wonderful short stories.
I'll have to check them out. Yeah, I have a shirt that I've had since I was 18. I think I have a few pieces of clothes that are actually older than that as well. But the one that sticks out in my mind, I had it, and then my nephew was born when I was 18, and I got his footprints put on it in ink at his birth, right? And I hung it up on a wall, and I just I never wore it or anything. And then I washed it one day on accident. Well, I don't know. I washed it, and the footprints went away. And then I told my nephew when he was 9 years old, I was like, "You see this shirt that I'm wearing right now? This used to have your footprints on it, dude. I swear to God, this is true. I had this shirt on when you were born, dude." But it was for real, and he couldn't believe it. He's he was pissed about it. He almost wanted to fight me over it. This is your oldest shirt, the Boulder 10K road race, Memorial Day 1990.
So this is a 27-year-old shirt as of
It's
May.
impressive, and it's faded in its color a little bit. But
Yeah.
in its original
Well,
glory, it
actually-
shined bright of nuclear radiation.
Well, yeah, I mean, it is a
fluorescent yellow,
shirt,
bright
yeah.
fluorescent. It is a yellow highlighter. It
Actually-
looks like you took a white shirt and you hit it with
and
yellow
with
highlighter.
a yellow highlighter. That's
Yeah.
that's why I wear this
And it's
every
got
now and again.
the red rocks that are pinkish in color, that are.
And actually, that's
Actually
the original
there.
color. That's
And then what are those balloons
the
flying out of the
balloons
stadium?
flying out of Folsom Stadium.
Out of Folsom Stadium. Did you live in Boulder?
No. I was.
What do you think about people from Boulder?
They're all right. I was in the Boy Scouts, and we handed out water and Gatorade. It was part of our service project.
Oh, that's cool. That's pretty impressive. We're at Lucas's house, and he went into his closet and grabbed that out of there. Yeah, I have a few relics in my closet too. I have my cap and gown from graduating high school. I still have that, I think. I have a few other pieces of clothing that, I don't know, it's weird. It's almost like after you have it for a certain period of time, it makes it like way harder to throw it away. Like way harder. Would you say that's the case with you?
Absolutely, because you get, well, it comes back to this whole psychic residue thing that we were talking about, I think in the lost episode, that just having a psychic imprint, being around something a lot, or having a lot of good memories associated with a place, or even a traumatic event happening there, can leave a fingerprint, I guess, of emotion or sentimentality, and I think it's important because it helps us remember things. It's a physical representation of an event that happened, and it sparks memories and helps us to relive. I mean, representations are always they can spark strong emotions and strong memories, like smells. Certain smells. You get a whiff of a perfume that you haven't smelled in 15 years, and instantly you're transported back to the first time that you smelled it, what was going on. I mean, it's a very powerful connection to what's happened before, because we really don't know. I mean, I'm covering like 60,000 things at this point, but we really don't know if we exist in the future, and we're not quite sure if we existed in the past. But right now, we're pretty sure of what's going on. So those physical representations, or those memory-producing sensey things, smells and sights and sounds, really leaves an imprint and allows those to become more than I believe the term is making them sacred.
Making them sacred.
Yeah, they become sacred objects. They're no longer just a T-shirt.
There's an emotion that goes along with it.
Well, there's so much more that it becomes something that is almost part of your spirit, and that's why it's such a tragedy when you lose
certain objects,
or like a fire happens or something, and your entire life is destroyed, or.
Dude, like when I washed those footprints off of that shirt, and they were like totally gone. Like there wasn't even like the chance of like getting a Sharpie and like recreating it or anything. Like it was like totally gone, Yeah, I was like, oh no. And then like that was pretty much it. I kind of let it go, I didn't really hold on to it too tight, but I've tried to like work on that. Being aware of that holding on to things. It can really consume you, and it has the possibility of making people do crazy things.
True.
In fits of rage, when the things of great importance go missing, right?
Or become dust.
It's interesting how people will use objects as a means of control, right? Like, I saw a YouTube video. This was so funny. This guy, he called the cops on his own son, right? And I don't think his son even lived with him. Maybe he did, but or he wasn't. I think he was a minor. But the dad wanted to take the son's phone away, and the kid wouldn't give it back to him, so he called the cops to try to get the phone from his kid. And the cop was like, yeah, this is like a civil case. Like, if it's in his possession, I mean, this seems like a personal matter. Like, you're going to have to solve this. Like, we already know that there's going to be a different story on the other side. Like, there's no point in calling us about these sorts of matters.
Okay.
This is why you take a deep breath. Because before you call the cops, you call the telephone company, who you obviously are the account owner, being an adult, because I don't believe you can have a contract with a telephone company unless you were 18. I don't believe that that's possible. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know how many...
I don't know. I mean, you can... There's certainly a lot of kids that have cell phones, you know.
Oh, yeah.
But, yeah, can you get a contract? Probably not.
I mean, can you get a burner phone, maybe? I mean, don't you have to be 18 to buy one of those, too?
I think you can just go in and buy the cards. I don't know if they check your age when you're going and buying a phone card. I mean, people have the right to use public... It's like public access sort of a thing. I think it's like Fourth Amendment shit, isn't it?
Minors are a different story.
But, but they like fall into like a gray area in the law when it comes to like necessities.
If anybody can clear this up, that would be super.
I'm sure that kids can buy phone cards. I don't think you have to be 18 to buy a phone card.
No?
I'm pretty sure about that. But to get a contract with a phone company, absolutely, you have to be 18.
You have to, yeah.
But I think maybe with the pay-as-you-go, you could probably be... You know, I mean, you can go out and get a job when you're 16 or 15.
But, I mean, do they require a credit card? I mean, because I know credit cards aren't issued.
Well, you could just do like a pay-as-you-go through T-Mobile.
But don't you have to give a credit card for... Or a debit card or something of that nature?
So. Yeah, I think so. Especially with T-Mobile. Huh. Yeah, that's a good point. They're probably just limited to using phone cards if you were a runaway. Or if your parents wouldn't let you have a phone and you wanted to have a phone.
Well, I mean, because I'm well, okay. Let's face it. Some people get things if they want them.
I got a phone when I was 16 that my parents didn't know about.
Did you now?
through Cricket, yeah. I was working at a frozen yogurt store.
Yeah.
And the guy that owned the place got us phones for his employees.
Okay, so business phone. Okay,
yeah.
So that's a realistic. Maybe the kid has a job.
But the guy that owned the place was just cool,
mm-hmm.
you know, and we wanted to have cell phones, and Cricket was an option of like getting a phone for like $45
cheap,
a month. Yeah, super cheap, and it's month to month. It was back then. It was like that was kind of like the first month to month service was Cricket.
I think they still are, aren't they?
Yeah, I think so.
But
they offer like everyone's kind of changed the game now. Like T-Mobile is month to month.
Are they?
Yeah, I don't have a contract with T-Mobile.
Oh.
And T-Mobile is also, I don't know if this is still true, but at least in Denver, is the only phone service you can get where you can have like truly unlimited data. Which, like with my YouTube habit, like I've basically almost killed the battery on my phone. Like if I like watch YouTube on my phone, dude, I can go from 100% battery to the phone turning off at like, it'll turn off for depending on the temperature, anywhere from 5% battery to at the most, like if it's super cold out, I've had it turn off at like 24% battery when it's like super cold outside and I'm watching a YouTube video. And it'll do that when it's cold in like 15 minutes. Inside at 75 degrees, it'll die in like 35 minutes probably. Like I'm pretty sure I can't watch a 40-minute long documentary on there now. It's like it's killed itself. I'm kind of happy that it's happened. I'm kind of happy that I like wore this phone out because like I need to break that habit, you know.
Yeah.
And that's something I've done a lot in my life is like breaking habits and changing behavior. And some of those behaviors have been like super systemic. Like Starbucks, I used to get Starbucks every single flipping day, probably 2 times a day and sometimes 3 times a day. I would get like a Starbucks like mocha frappuccino, and like that would be my lunch. That would be my lunch breakfast. Like so I'd wake up, run off to work, like I would sleep as late as I could, cut it so I had no time. Then I've got I got it timed down to the minute. So like I get out of my car and like walk in the door and I'm a minute late. You know, like every day. Like got it figured out perfectly. And drinking and getting a Starbucks at the drive-thru on the way in. You know, every day. And getting one at lunch too.
Did you have a gold card?
I did. Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah, I got up to gold level, man.
I feel this one.
And I broke that habit. I kind of like replaced it with another habit, but I broke it. But that was one that took like a much worse habit to break the Starbucks habit, man.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. I broke the habit by starting to brew my own coffee.
Yeah, and eventually I replaced once I was back on coffee.
Yeah. Got it. Okay.
Once I was off other things and back on coffee. Once I was sitting around in group therapy. That's the consequence, by the way. In case you were wondering, you probably won't go to jail now, but you might wind up in group therapy if you fuck up bad enough.
And let me tell you,
with contraband substances like...
It's not always a bad thing.
No, it was actually like the best thing that ever happened to me. I was waiting for it to happen to me. I just couldn't make that leap on my own. Like addiction is a very powerful thing, and you know, I set up the circumstances to get myself into group therapy. And,
I don't think you intentionally did that.
No, I knew exactly what the consequences were. I knew exactly what was going to occur, more or less. I mean, some of what the future was figured out, but I knew that like if I went to jail, then I could break my habit. And that's like the ultimate way. Like there's no going back on that one, you know, unless your habit happens to be in jail. But it's pretty hard to, when you're getting checked into jail, there's a number of days there before you would be able to find something if there was something to be found. If, you know, and habits are interesting in that way that you can kind of switch one out for the other. When my addiction really started, and I'm talking about heroin addiction. I was a heroin addict, actually, for I think it was about like 15 months or so. It might have been longer than that. I haven't really cared to like look down at it and like figure it out on a calendar, like how long, you know, like when it started and everything. I just haven't really wanted to figure that out.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter,
right? But that'll be a topic for a whole podcast coming up in the future. We'll go into the specifics of heroin and what that does and what kind of an addiction. We'll cover it all. We'll delve into it. But once the heroin started, like I didn't go to Starbucks once I was on heroin at all, man. I mean, that was like a rare occasion. That money was going in one direction and one direction only, you know? So if you, that's one way of breaking a Starbucks habit that I highly do not recommend. That would be the worst way of changing any habits. But it is, there's something that you can build upon with like replacements of habits, because there are ways in healthy ways to replace habits with healthier habits, right?
May I mention one?
Please. Replace breathing with smoking. Replace smoking with breathing.
There you go.
I was going to say replace breathing with smoking. That's what I normally do, but
yeah, I get that too. There is something to be said for I just lost what it's called, but it's the breathing. It's paying attention to what's happening. It's being aware of where you are. It's knowing that in this very moment right here you are safe and secure and do not need anything but what you have.
Yeah.
and that is the contact, the I am. That is where you must go to deal with things of an addictive nature, what have you. I mean, your brain is a playground of thoughts and ideas, and they're constantly running around and battling each other. And
it's a big board game going on in there, right? And your behavior is the outcome of that game that's going on. And you can choose, you can figure out ways to play that game differently, and you can realize that game that's going on with your addictions, and we all have addictions, all of us. There isn't anybody on this planet that isn't addicted to something.
And if they tell you otherwise, they're lying.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's part of life, and some addictions are not viewed as being that bad, a beer and a movie every night, Well, I only have one, but you do it every single night, and you sit there for 2.5 hours. Are you addicted to doing that? Do you get addicted to your shows that you watch? And, there are major differences between, like, a heroin addiction and a Game of Thrones addiction. Like, there's a very different things, but, like, if you can break the daily use of heroin and focus on Game of Thrones and dive into that as you're breaking that habit, and just by occupying your time, you can really change your life that way. And if you do that a number of times throughout your life, and I think most people do. Mm-hmm. I mean, we change our behaviors. Sometimes we're forced to. We have relationships with people, and they come to an end, and maybe we didn't want them to, and maybe we did. But when that occurs, there's a forced change, and all of a sudden, all of you're like a blank palette when those changes in life occur, and that's a time when relationships are changing, or you're changing habits. That's a time to build new habits, and you can definitely build more destructive ones. I gave you a prime example of that, probably the worst example of that.
Well, I mean, not to belittle heroin, but there are many destructive, not just self-destructive, but destructive habits, and I can't say one is worse than the other, but there are things that people are addicted to that have caused a lot of external pain and suffering. I mean, when you're doing self-destructive things, it kind of
like when you're watching your movie and your wife calls your name and you don't even register that you heard her. That little action right there causes suffering and pain in your wife. The lack of attention, the ignoring your children. I think we're all guilty of that. Mm-hmm. That causes pain on other people. Yeah. And heroin causes pain on other people in this world in a much more efficient way than television watching and minor hurt feelings. There's a lot of destruction that goes along with it.
Because when you love someone and you're watching them destroy themselves, I mean, that's a lot of pain right there.
Sure, and heroin can cause people to do things that they would normally never do, and especially like involving money and. Pawn shops play a huge part in the whole heroin epidemic. Believe it or not, they're part of the economic cycle of addiction, not just for heroin, for probably everything.
Oh yeah.
I had a pawn shop for a while, and there were kids that would come in and like sell their new phones, to go and buy weed. I hope they were going to buy weed with their money. I don't know for sure. Sure as hell didn't ask, but. There's a lot that goes into one bad facet of society. Like, you can point at the heroin epidemic, and if you know anything about it and know how destructive it is, but everyone always kind of looks at like small parts of it. There's a lot of players in the game that have no idea that they're players in the game of addiction, and then the needs that people have to fulfill those needs, and the fact that money is the conduit to getting that.
That is it is a direct result of capitalism.
There's a lot of dirty hands.
A need sprung up for something, and somebody filled that need.
It's funny, there's a lot of dirty hands, right? But also, everyone's hands are dirty with traces of cocaine that come off of bills that you touch. I mean, pretty much if you handle currency, there are traces of cocaine on your hands.
Probably.
Like, for sure. I mean, at some point, not every day, not every single bill out there, but I would say
they've been in contact with bills.
If you're handling money on a daily basis, I would say in 10 years' time, you've probably encountered cocaine on your fingers, probably at least a couple thousand times.
Yeah, and that's why it's so important to wash your hands.
So not every single day, but maybe every third day or fourth day. You know, Colorado has a really, really high cocaine usage rate. Super, super high.
I would believe that, but I'm going to point to some places. Vail, Aspen.
Dude, all of those places are full of like really great celebrities that I love.
Yeah.
Are you saying that they're all on cocaine?
Not all of them.
Allegedly.
Not all the time.
Not all of them, allegedly.
Not all the time.
Not all the time. Everybody's got to sleep every once in a while, right?
We keep taking this into some pretty egregious areas.
They're funny areas.
Well, there's nothing like the snow-capped peaks of Colorado in June.
Yeah.
They're
over Tom Cruise's house, allegedly. Just kidding. I don't know. I've never heard an allegation of Tom Cruise using cocaine.
I think he's too weird to use cocaine.
I've like researched this quite a bit. Yeah, like Scientology is all about pure bodies and
it's a.
And I think they co-opted him like pretty early on in his career. It's way crazy how they work with celebrities.
Let's think about this. When did he get his teeth fixed? Because he still had bad teeth when he did Legend in '84. Were they okay by Risky Business in '86?
I think Top Gun.
That was '86.
I've actually looked into this a little bit, and I think by the time he was in Top Gun, he was definitely in Scientology.
Yeah, because I would venture to say that it happened right about the same time he got his teeth fixed.
Yeah, there's some crazy stories that have come out of Scientology about Tom Cruise and like the things that the people of Scientology have done to. I think they've built stuff for him and cleared land and done all sorts of interesting things. There's a documentary called Going Clear. Have you seen that?
Mm-hmm. I haven't seen it, but I've heard about it.
Dude, Going Clear is really, really good. If you want to know about that, if you want to know about Scientology, if you want to spend your time on that,
it's really an interesting and frankly, and I'm just playing the devil's advocate again. It's frankly no weirder than many other religions out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to be fair, yeah. I mean, it's weirder than a lot of other religions in a lot of ways, just because of the time period that you're talking about, you know? Like the fact that, like, there's a lot of weird stuff in the Bible, don't get me wrong, you know? Like, and great stories.
Okay, I'm gonna give you a weird...
That dates back a while.
I'm gonna give you a weird story right here.
1900 BC or 180...
What?
Like 2,000 years ago now.
Yeah, 2,000 years ago.
Ish.
Well, I'm going to tell you something right now, okay? Some guy comes down, tells everybody to be good to each other, and gets killed. What kind of a hero is that?
It's really like... Okay, so Jesus is the Son of God. He dies on a cross, and that forgives my sins? Like, when you apply, if you created a mathematical equation for that situation there, like there would be no way of solving that. Like that, like just when you're setting up like the left side of the equation, like you couldn't even set it up because it's like it's so absurd. Like, oh, you die for my sins.
And then what I'd like to say is, well, okay, if you died for my sins,
I mean,
then why are all
like
these people still
like,
holding me accountable for my sins?
Yeah, and those people are collecting money first, to get rid of sins, and there's a lot of odd behavior that goes on with it. And
well, how about the selling of relics? I mean, that's how the church funded itself for the longest time, was selling bone fragments of saints or pieces of the true cross,
sold?
Or fingernails of St. Jude.
Are you serious? There's stories of them selling relics?
This is not stories. This is actual. They
like
actually
the Catholic
did this.
Church,
The
like
Catholic
the Vatican?
Church. Yes.
Like the Vatican itself.
The Vatican had to approve the relic to say that it was actually a relic.
So there's like an economy there. They're like monetizing bones. You're like
Well, you know who the largest landowner in the world is?
It's like the Federal Reserve monetizes paper, and the Vatican monetizes bones.
Yeah. But you know who the largest landowner in the world was for the longest time? It was the church.
Oh, yeah. That's... Yeah. At a time where there was a lot of land that didn't have deeds to go to it, but...
I mean, yeah. I mean,
in the known world.
The church functions more like a business than
You know what's weird
religious
is
institution.
like how the Vatican and the church and the influence of Christianity and Catholicism plays like such a huge part into our world as from our paradigm of being Americans born in America at this time. Like I don't think if we were two guys sitting in China right now, I don't think the Vatican would ever come up in conversation. I don't think people wouldn't unless where the topic at hand was like studying other cultures and whatnot. That there's no cultural influence like what we have from the church.
I don't think so. I think there is a large cultural influence. There were tons of missionaries that went out to the East in the 15th, 16th, 16th,
So you're saying there's like a lot of
there's exposure to it. There's small Christian communities in China.
Do you think it's influenced our culture like the same way it has here?
Not to the degree that it has here. I mean,
I think like the language barrier, just in its own right. Like things are definitely. I don't know. Societies are so nuanced. Like things are so specifically different.
I think the understanding is different. I think it's approached from a better angle. Because you're when you're a missionary trying to teach your way of life, your religion to let's just say Brazilian rainforest tribe. I mean, there's so much involved in just learning to communicate with each other that a lot of it gets passed that way, and it changes
like
both.
Getting people to the early steps were like getting clothes on people, and think about this. Okay, so like look at this specific nuance. Like the Christianity comes into my life every day. Like if I stub my toe, like what do I say? I'll say like Jesus Christ, or I'll be like Jesus fucking Christ, right? So that's like a really nuanced thing. But that doesn't like. I don't think people stub their toe in China and say Jesus Christ. They say
probably not,
and probably not in their own language either.
No,
right?
I would not think so. I would think that they would have something else.
That's a good example of the concept that I was trying to present earlier.
Okay,
because it didn't make sense very well.
I got it.
Because I'm stoned. I'm stoned. I don't like entertainment. That's a shout out to Steven Crowder. That he has that in his intro to his show, in the Louder with Crowder show. I don't like entertainment.
It's all entertainment.
People, that's, isn't it? Is religion entertainment?
Oh,
to
yeah.
us?
Oh,
it is.
pull out the popcorn.
Falls right in that category.
That's good stuff. I mean,
we're breaking through some like philosophical shit here, people. Like if you're listening right now, like you probably are getting on a different level.
yeah.
Or you think we're stupid.
Well, I mean, our entire lives from, birth to death are really just a series of waiting for moments to happen, filling the time, the gaps in between the important bits.
Yeah. Anybody that's listening to us right now is probably doing just that, filling some time. And for some reason, you like listening to us talk, and it's awesome. We need to set up we got to set up a Patreon for people to send us money if they want.
Is that, I don't know.
That's a big thing. Like, if you're trying to make money by producing content.
Is this like a crowdfunding thing?
Yeah, it's just a website where people can.
Okay.
And you could set it. We could set it up where people could subscribe and give us like a certain amount every month. And people do that because they're like, oh well, I would be paying so and so $2 a day for a newspaper.
Yeah.
So I'll give these guys $2 a month or something, and it piles up. If you have if we had 50,000 listeners and 30 of them donated like $20 a month, we'd be able to buy enough weed to do at least like a couple episodes.
Not only that, we could actually put soundproofing up and get real microphones and an actual soundboard.
Yeah, that's true. You got to launch a website, so I can still make a crappy website for the podcast, a really simple one.
Oh, that's fine.
Well, since we're not going to do like the WordPress way, or we could.
I think I'd like to stay away from the WordPress
Yeah.
method. I mean, unique pages are something. Well, I mean, they're sub pages, but
Yeah, we can have it set up like really simple, where on the website it just shows like. And we could even if people actually like want to send us stuff at some point, let us know in the comments, and we'll set up like a PO box or something, or you could write us and we'll give you an address to send stuff to if you are so gracious to do that. And if you want stuff from us, let us know. I'll let you know of some stuff I'm getting rid of. And
legal things.
Yeah, legal things. Like, I have.
I'm sorry, we can't ship certain things across state lines.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah. Plus, we don't have enough weed to go around anyways. Right now.
Yeah. Tell me. Okay. Yeah. Soon. Very soon. Very soon.
I think we're going to make a ride over to Lucy Sky tomorrow.
Well, I've been on the phone to these people, and I said, okay, well, I've checked up on you today. I'll be calling you back on Monday morning. I have the ability and the time to be a genuine pain in the ass if I need to be. And it gets things done.
These people that just don't pay, that are like, oh, well, we're going to pay you, and like if you have independent contractors working for you, fucking pay them. Like if the work's done, pay them. Just pay them like right away. Do it fast. Like, there's so many ways to do that now. If you're one of these people that like pushes it out for months, and you might have some reasons for that like you're just trying to keep things afloat, and if you're in that category,
tell the people that you're paying.
Yeah,
they'll understand.
Yeah, it's a cash flow thing. You just gotta wait. Sorry, we're working on it. We're waiting on checks too. Yeah, be open about it if that's the case. Because if you admit it, then like the people that are working for you won't like go around and tell other people like hey, guess what? You might not want to work for these people because of this. Or it just creates doubt. But then like once you have a client, we both do independent contracting, and I've had issues with people paying me before, and you know, if people are like honest about it and they say, you know, oh, sorry, it's going to be a few days, and when you say if it is going to be a couple days, and you actually like be realistic, like actually take the time to like figure out, like make sure you're going to be able to pay that person at that time, you know. I've been on the other side of it too. But when you dick people around and like you tell them like the check's in the mail and it's actually not, like you're a fucking douchebag. Yeah, it's basically kind of what it comes down to.
That's crappy. I mean, there's a.
But it's rude. True. It's just plain out rude, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, because the circumstances are the circumstances. Unless someone's really being douchey and like has the money and isn't paying because they just want to collect more interest or some crazy shit.
And that's
when it's what it is. Like then you're like stepping into a whole different level of like. Well, you know that this is what we get out of capitalism.
It's why
it forces people to fight against each other and to.
It's why I don't like corporations. I really hate corporations. I hate the fact that banks are national now. Banks ran a lot better, I believe, when they were local. They were run by the people who lived in your community, and you know, you were taking loans out from people who lived in your community to build your community. Nowadays, you know, what does this national bank, what care does it have except for the bottom line and how much money they're going to make off of you as you're not a customer, you're a piece of property, essentially, when you enter into the banking world. It's disgusting.
Yeah, but debt-based currency, it's actually like you're creating that paper, you're creating that money when you're signing a loan, or at least you're creating 90% of it.
Yeah.
It's conjured out of thin air with your promise to repay. They're digits written into bank accounts created at that very moment in time. That's actually how our money's created.
It's phenomenal.
And, dude, you know how few people actually know that that's how it is. Our money is based on debt.
Oh yeah.
The debt that's owed, but it's based on the promise to repay. Phenomenally interesting.
Do you know what was it? I think John Adams was the guy who went over to. Oh, great! No, I can't think of this one. It was either Holland or Denmark to fund the Revolutionary War. He actually took out the first credit of the United States. And it's been downhill ever since then. 1776, I think it was. I think it was Holland. The Dutch. I think it was the Dutch.
Yeah, and a lot of loans were for soldiers.
Yeah,
like a lot of the early loans and the Rothschild families funding of. What do they call a hired soldier back in the day?
A mercenary.
A mercenary.
No, they still call them mercenaries. Or Blackwater.
Yeah, or Blackwater. Yeah, I had a friend that had a Blackwater shirt. He liked Blackwater, and I had just gotten done watching documentaries about how Blackwater was like really bad.
Yeah.
And so this was in the days where like you still had the flip phones.
Mm-hmm.
All right, but you had a camera on it, and I had like this horrible diarrhea that like came out black.
Ew.
And so I took a picture of it and I sent it to him with a caption of "This is Blackwater."
Wow. You know, that's funny on so many levels.
This is Blackwater. So can you imagine? He like opens his phone, and I think he could see the text before he could see the picture. You know, this is Blackwater, and then he sees like, just a toilet full of just like. Well, it was just Blackwater. Yeah. It really was. It was the real deal. It was that thing RV owners are always talking about.
So, interesting little point. Trump's pick for education secretary, DeVos. I'm not sure how you pronounce her name. Her brother runs Blackwater.
No shit. Does he own it?
Uh-huh.
And so the guy that is he the guy that founded it?
I believe he
if
is.
That's him, dude. That guy has there's some crazy stats about him. He's the most wealthy individual to enlist in the army voluntarily.
Huh.
He's like a multimillionaire going into the army, and he served in Iraq or Afghanistan or something, you know. And then he obviously went ahead and I think his dad helped him open up Blackwater afterwards, and the name has changed now, so that's like no longer a thing. Blackwater. All that history's gone. Like,
it's amazing.
Like, don't worry, Wikipedia, you can delete it. That's like totally acceptable now. Like, they've changed their name. Like, we don't need that in our history books.
Isn't it funny how a company changes its name suddenly? It's okay.
It works.
Do you know
people don't recognize it?
There used to be this company that made cigarettes. I believe they were called Philip Morris. They made Marlboros. Is that what those were called? Marlboro cigarettes, I think.
Is that right?
Yeah. They bought Kraft Foods.
That was a good move.
Well, they bought Kraft Foods, and was it Miller? Did they buy Miller? I think.
The beer?
I think it was Kraft and Miller. And then they rebranded as Altria. And so your Kraft Foods are now coming from a parent company of Altria, which is run by Philip Morris.
Have you ever seen, you know about Berkshire Hathaway? So this is Warren Buffett's company,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And like the stock, if you look it up, I think it's BKA or something is the stock symbol. If you just search Berkshire Hathaway stock, the Class A stock, so like if Class A is where you would be able to actually like have a vote, on matters, and you can buy Class B stock, which is based at 1/10 the price of the Class A. I haven't looked it up in a long time, but I've seen it as high as like $140,000 per share.
Sure.
That's freaking nuts, dude. And the guy that owned the yogurt store I was talking about earlier, he had a friend that was buying up the stock like as much as he could when it was $800 a share.
Smart man.
Yeah. We should have the yogurt store guy on the show sometime. I'll try to get him over here. He's a real like busybody type, but he's a gold nut. He's a gold investor and he bought like a shit ton of gold when it was $2.60 an ounce. That was when I was working for him at the yogurt store. And I think the customers would come in and he would recommend all of his customers that were like somewhat like that he knew had money to invest. He was like, buy gold. He just told them, I would recommend buying some gold. It's probably a good idea. Yeah. When it was $2.60 an ounce. I mean, he told thousands of people that. And like people like made fun of him. Like some customers brought in a statue of Goldmember from the Austin Powers movie, and you pressed the button and it said, "I love gold. I love gold.
Would you like to smoke in a pancake?"
I mean, he just like, dude, he wasn't offended at all. He wore it with pride. He's like, yeah, I freaking love gold, absolutely. He's like, so and so these neighbors brought it in, blah blah blah. Yeah, he's like all about it, and he, eventually he sold that yogurt store, and I think he built wealth of I don't know, so I shouldn't even speculate, but enough money to get by really well on, and he spent whatever he could making. I think he told me he was making as much as maybe $40,000 a year running this yogurt store.
Okay.
That was what he was able to take out of it, which is even when I was working there, that's a pretty shitty wage. Like if you own your own business and you've had it for like, you had that business for like 15 years, to have a business for 15 years and you're paying yourself only $40,000 a year, it's not the world's best business. I mean, a lot of people, you can be a plumber, you can be an independent plumber and make $120,000 a year at the same time period.
What if that was just what he was paying himself? What if he was getting extras in the form of health insurance and retirement benefits?
Yeah, he might have paid into an IRA. And
when you own a
business,
depending on SC, LLC,
he might have had like $15,000 a year in benefits on top of that he was paying for.
Or as a business owner, depending on what corp it is, the profits at the end of the year become yours. So you may be paying yourself because that's good practice to pay yourself, but at the end of the year, those profits are yours. So you can either invest those, or you can put them back into the company, or because that's what you get. That's what you get your taxes on, your corporate tax on.
So, I mean, as far as from what he told me, with his mediocre wage and buying a whole bunch of gold when you could get 4 ounces for $1,000, and now it's 1,000 or 1,100 an ounce right now. It's been as high as $1,900 an ounce for gold, and it's been over 800 for like 6 or 7 years now, I think. So he did really, really well for himself doing that. It's like a little life hack for him there. Like my little life hack to get my scholarship to Montana State University by getting a 2.3 GPA and then studying for this SAT for 2 weeks and just barely getting a high enough score. I actually didn't meet their minimum entry requirements, but since I qualified for their scholarship, they let me get into their school.
For the GPA?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I shouldn't have been able to even get into Montana State University. Yeah. I had like a $42,000 4-year scholarship there.
Did you have to?
And then I went for 1 year and didn't go back.
Do you have to write a letter saying I want to go to your place because this, that, and the other thing, or this is high on
Yeah, I
heaven
hammered
and
one
I
out.
wanted
Yeah, I wrote out a letter.
You impressed them with that. That's what really turned their heads was. I swear, I've read so many stories of college entrance people who they don't really care. I mean, yes, they care somewhat about your academic skills, but it's really if you personally impress them.
It helps a lot.
Yeah.
And it's something that, as far as people being told to be robots and to do what we're told, there is the ability to still persuade some people in this world, and as far as the rules go, it shouldn't be that way. That's not fair. That you can write a letter to get a leg up, and if you ever wind up going through the court system, make sure you got your family in the courtroom with you, especially when you're getting sentenced. That's huge, and showing that there's support and that there's people around you that care about you.
Oh,
because when no one shows up, the judge kind of knows, I think everybody wants him to have the maximum sentence,
Well, and that the judges and the juries are supposed to be, a tempering of the black and whiteness of law. They're supposed to be because human beings, I think we've discussed this before, 95% of us fall into a certain range, but there's always that 5% that's not. Or, every circumstance is different regardless of how similar it is to other circumstances.
Yeah.
And, putting the human factor into that, making it gray. But when you don't have mitigating circumstances, as they're called, like having a family in the courtroom or something, then, what else does the judge have to go on?
Right. And that's a big thing with, gosh, could you imagine being a judge? That would be one of the worst, that would be one of the last jobs I would want to have, would be the person that gets to decide what to do with people.
That's why they get paid well.
I've heard people suggest, I think judges and lawyers and everybody in the judicial system, they should have to spend a week in jail, once every 5 years of their careers, or not necessarily even a week, a couple days, or a couple days in solitary confinement.
Well, definitely
to experience that and see if they should reform their rules in solitary. Putting people in solitary confinement is truly a form of torture.
Oh yeah.
And it's really, really fucked up to do. When people can't discern stuff. You make people, there's a lot of cases of people that have been in solitary a whole lot and then gotten out and killed people.
Yeah.
And there's a kid that his dad was friends with John Hickenlooper. The kid got out of jail, and I think he killed the director of the Colorado prison system at his home. And he disguised it. And he also killed a pizza delivery guy to take the cover so he could get to the door. Yeah. Yeah, you don't get that kind of crazy without some really, really extreme circumstances. And in that case, I think that solitary confinement that guy had, definitely led to that. But that guy also was kind of crazy going into jail too.
Well,
I think he wound up like getting in fights like almost immediately all the time. And
our judicial system is not designed to rehabilitate; it's designed to lock up and forget about.
what's his name? I think his name is Evan Ebert. I think. You're saying the system is designed to lock up and forget.
Lock up and forget. Not rehabilitate. That is not what the system is designed for. We're slowly getting there, but I mean, and this is
capitalism has really made it a lot worse. Honestly.
That is absolutely true. That is absolutely true. There is called the school to prison pipeline.
Yeah,
in the South, where you if you consistently keep people as the suspects in cases, or you keep them down, they will obviously retaliate or not have the wherewithal to know what's right and wrong. I mean, the education system is a perfect example. If people aren't smart enough to figure out what's wrong, I mean, it's not when you're learning in school, it's not the facts and figures that you're learning. It's not the fact that 2 + 2 = 4. The key point to the education system is supposed to be critical thinking. And one of the things that the education system keeps, and it's a perversion of education, is we get this, we need to know how well our students are doing. We need to know, are they getting the information? And that's not the point of education. The point of education is to learn how to think.
Should be, and I think the school system could do a much better job of helping people adjust to adult life, and I don't think that objective is really taken into consideration as much as we would like to think it is.
Not at all.
Or not at all. I mean, they do offer home ec.
Well, sure. Well, and
you can learn skills, and
it also depends on how well funded the school district is.
But I think, woodworking skills, and we have the potential to learn many things. And I took a woods class, and in my adult life, every once in a while I'll do a project that I work with, and wood is involved, or I think of wood as an option for solutions to small problems around the house, and you'd be surprised how much those electives that you took in school can sometimes be some of the things that you've learned that you use the most. The home ec stuff is actually pretty damn useful, isn't it? We have to feed ourselves every day, and you might as well do it from home.
I need to sew my pants up.
I never really cooked ever in my adult life. Just never. I mean, I've done it a lot lately since I now have a 5-month-old child. So I've been doing a lot more cooking lately, and leading up to that with a pregnant girlfriend, I definitely did a lot of cooking then. But that, at age 30 was the first time there was a necessity for me to cook, because you can, and I think a lot of people do, you can, especially if you're single and you're making enough money to pay the rent, and if you have $500 to buy food with every month, do you want to go to the grocery store, or you can just go and grab a burger, a cheap ass burger, and get by for the day. On $10 you could easily get by if you're trying really hard.
Or you just buy a Starbucks mocha frappuccino.
Yeah, you can buy 3 of those a day, and you'll get by just fine, and you'll be well caffeinated throughout the day. And you'll have plenty of calcium in your bones.
Yeah,
too.
There's enough sugar in there to keep you going. So, I mean,
Yeah, you hit a lot of nutritional points with the mocha fraps.
Maybe have an occasional peanut.
Yeah, get some. Yeah, mix it up a little bit every once in a while. Eat some peanut butter. You can get by on a pretty basic diet, but it wears on you eventually. Eventually, you can if you're missing out on like certain vitamins, and if you eat really specific diets that if you're eating the same thing over and over again, you'll wind up missing out on some vitamins, and you can feel really, really horrible.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I've okay. For the last 6 months, I've been working on doing a ketogenic diet.
Oh, awesome!
And in the last 2 months is when it's really shown, because I haven't had exposure to other things. I mean, where I lived before, everybody ate bread every day and had cereal and rice and pasta, and these are all strict no-nos on the ketogenic diet. You're basically cutting carbohydrates. You're kind of
it's kind of like the Atkins diet.
Yeah, but the Atkins diet didn't promote. Well, I mean, there's the new Atkins diet, which is more in line with this.
Nobody cares about the Atkins diet anymore. Everybody talks about a ketogenic diet. That's like that's the new popular thing.
But there are many of them, because the South Beach diet is a ketogenic diet.
Yeah.
The new Atkins is a ketogenic diet, and what it is it's a decrease in your carbohydrate consumption, because that's what gets turned into fat first. Because when your body is burning the carbohydrates, it burns through them real fast.
Yeah.
And then anything extra is turned into fat.
But a ketogenic diet gets your body into a ketogenic state,
which burns fat first.
That's kind of the fuel that's present. Like you don't really have carbs present or sugars present.
And you have to get yourself into it and stay in ketosis.
Yeah,
I think is what it's called.
That's correct. Yeah.
And it's hard,
it's
especially
a
when
metabolic
around
state, but it's really interesting. Like you don't have peaks and valleys to your energy level.
No, it's wonderful. I love it. I have more energy than I've ever had before. I've lost. Last year I gained about 40 pounds in the space of a month, and
carbs are amazing at that. Man.
Yeah,
if you want to put on weight, carbs are for you.
Yeah. When young weightlifters are talking about carbo loading, I'm thinking, okay, whatever, you do your thing.
I don't know about. I think that there are some activities that being in ketosis is not good. Like there's a good example in MMA fighting. There's a chick that lost. She won the belt, and then she lost it, and she had changed to a ketogenic diet in between, and it seemed like her explosiveness as a fighter. I'm trying to think of what her name is. She lost her.
Was that Rousey?
No, this is the woman that lost the belt to the current champion, Amanda Nunes. She's a real pretty girl.
Was that Rousey? Ronda Rousey?
No, it's a different one.
Who's Ronda Rousey?
Ronda was the champion of women's MMA, the bantamweight 135-pound division, and the UFC has a couple other divisions.
All right, because
I'm thinking about Miesha Tate. So Ronda had the championship. She was the belt holder for the longest time. Like I think she had like 8 or 9 wins in the UFC, and then a bunch of other victories in other venues. And then she, I think her pro record was 8-0 or 9-0, and then she got knocked out. She lost a fight to Holly Holm, who's a very tall, blonde. I think she's a boxer.
Okay.
She beat Ronda, and she knocked her out with a leg kick to the head that was really, really bad. And a lot of people made fun of Ronda Rousey on social media, and she took 13 months off. She came back to fight Amanda Nunes, who was the current belt holder. Now, the other part of the story is, so Holly Holm was the champion after beating Ronda. And then Holly fought Miesha Tate. And Miesha Tate had lost to Ronda 2 times before all of this. But Miesha put up a hell of a fight. Like, Miesha was basically kind of like the second best to Ronda for the longest time. but lost to her twice. Holly Holm beats Ronda, and then Misha beats Holly Holm and takes the belt.
Okay.
Which is crazy, right?
Yeah.
And that was she choked out Holly Holm at the very end of a 5-round fight after an absolute bloodbath of a UFC match. If you want to watch that on UFC, that was a really, really good fight. A lot of an impressive feat. And then she went on to fight. So Misha had the belt. She finally got it after all of these years of fighting and getting her ass kicked by Ronda a few times. But she was finally the champion. And then people are saying, "Oh, you should wait for Ronda to come back and fight Ronda again." And she should have. She definitely should have. But nope, she wanted to defend her belt, and she went up against Amanda Nunes, who is she's going to be champion for a long time in the women's UFC bantamweight division. She is she's unlike
tough.
any other fighter that's been in that division. She's so tough. She hits so hard and so fast, and she can take punishment. And she's an open lesbian.
Does she eat thunder and crap lightning?
You could say that, yeah. But she's the first openly gay blood sport or fighting champion that's ever been out.
Oh.
She's the first one, yeah, of any professional fighting, you could say.
Well, I don't think it would. Well, I don't know. I can't say because I honestly don't know. Are there many gay boxers?
I don't know, but I guess I imagine the stat would actually read she's the first openly gay champion. So she is champion and she's out.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm
bravo to her.
Yeah, I'm happy about that. But you know what surprises me? How few gay wrestlers there are. I'm sorry. I'm just thinking. Hormones raging. You're young. You're thinking, oh wow, how can I wrestle around with guys? And it's like, I'm sorry. There
are some.
That's the pervert.
I'm sure that.
Oh no, there are
some. But
there are.
You can't be out. You can't be a gay wrestler.
No.
I mean, we're still, rednecks are easily 15 years away from that.
Yeah.
Easily.
Well, the other one is water polo. I mean, we're talking. They are. How was this described? Some Australian guy said that water polo is the gayest sport played by straight men. I think is what he said.
Is that right?
Because, I mean, think about it. It's a whole bunch of guys in Speedos who have these sleek, toned bodies moving through the water, falling all over each other.
Sounds pretty erotic.
Well, it does, doesn't it? Yeah,
does.
I mean, that's the thing, is it? It's. I'm just.
And none of them are gay?
And none of them are gay.
I don't know. It sounds like.
Doesn't it?
It sounds like it's impossible.
It does,
sort of.
doesn't it?
It
does, yeah.
Kind of sounds impossible.
Well, I'm gonna bring Chuck Palahniuk into this one. Do you know him?
Chuck Palahniuk?
Yeah, he wrote. I've got a book right up there. Which one is that one? That's Mother of Pearl. Oh, right. That's the one I didn't put the name on. It's got an R on the front. An oral biography of Buster Casey. Great book. But he wrote Fight Club.
Oh, that's a really good movie.
Well, and he's talking, and he's openly gay, and the general consensus is that Fight Club is about being gay but not being fruity. The first rule of Fight Club is you don't talk about Fight Club.
Oh, that's funny. So it's not funny, but
it's
an attempt to really capture what our culture makes gay men have to be.
It almost hamstrings the masculinity out of being homosexual, because there's this expectation that you work in certain fields, you act certain ways, you do certain things.
Yeah, the whole stereotyping thing is is interesting, isn't it?
Well, I just went through it. I'm talking about wrestlers and water polo.
Yeah.
I mean, like I actually give a shit. But, I mean,
right.
There's this expectation that we have.
Well, this is like a cultural thing. I think this actually rides through people the same way instincts do. That like this is the group think that goes along with it, and the images that we picture in our minds when we think about things. I think that influences other people's thoughts about things, and that's where the stereotypes come from, maybe.
Very
but
possibly.
Stereotypes
Very
can
possibly.
be like shockingly true, right? I mean,
well, are they true because we observe them as a generalization of a group of people or a group of things, or do we make them happen?
I'm like mixing the thought of stereotypes with that story I was telling you about the FBI solving that serial killer case, where this is in a previous episode, that the FBI was able to tell the police, given just a few pieces of evidence, they were able to predict that the perpetrator would have a stutter, and they were right about it, and they knew that they would be right about it from collecting information. And they're basically stereotyping, right? I mean, they create mathematical algorithms out of evidence.
95% of the time. 95% of the time, these things will work.
And we do that in our brain all the time, right?
Well, that's what the amygdala is for. I mean, we keep hitting on this because that's all it does all day. Is it takes in information and looks for correlations between other things that have happened in your life and says, okay, something bad could happen if you do this.
Right. And like when something happens where adrenaline's released, like you remember that shit like in a different way. There's like a primal connection that's going on in the brain. And so when that thing comes up again, like
it's almost an immediate.
Yeah, it's weird how you can depending on what kind of relationships you have with people, you can see certain people and immediately have that response. Like if you're breaking the law and then you see a cop, you have that response. It's the power of the badge right there, man.
Power of the badge.
You can evoke an emotion, an adrenaline rush in innocent people, even. That's the power of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's because everybody's guilty of something. Everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody.
When a cop comes up to your window and just casually is like, "What are you doing?" You're like, "What do you know?"
Yeah.
How long have you been watching me?
What do you know?
That's the best response when a cop says to you,
"Do you know why I pulled you over?"
How long have you been watching me?
And then all I can think of is that scene in Liar, Liar, Wallow. Depends on how long you were following me. I ran a red light, I ran through a stop sign, I did this, I did that, I did this, and I have unpaid parking tickets.
Yeah. What you don't want to do is get pulled over and then start thinking about that scene in that movie.
Yeah.
And you're really careful, trying to not let a Freudian slip go. When a cop walks up and he's like, "Hello," interrupt him and say, "I didn't do it." Or say, "It was me." Admit to it. Just say, "It was me."
It wasn't me. But I've got video footage. It wasn't me. Take the Eddie Murphy approach.
It wasn't me.
Oh yeah. They made a song. They made a song about Lou Bega and Rick Rock. Did a song based off of that one.
Yeah.
What was it? Honey came in and she caught me red-handed, banging on the bathroom floor.
Yeah.
Pictured that we were both butt naked.
Laying on the...
She was calling out for more. How could I forget that I had given her an extra key? All the time she was standing there, she didn't take her eyes off me.
Oh, the anthem of the unfaithful man.
Oh,
Yeah, that's it's interesting. Some songs that you just you never hear unless you play it.
Eclectic music taste. I listen to everything.
Man, I was at King Supers the other day, and that song came on, "Pieces of Me" by Ashley Simpson, and I recognized it. Because, like, I was like, oh, I remember her, like, being famous, you know, for a while there. And then she had, like, a...
What was it? She was on SNL or something?
She was on SNL, and she had a lip-syncing disaster.
And they played some other song or something.
And she did a hoe dance, and then she actually even like made fun of herself about like how she responded in that situation.
Well, now I am going to actually defend her in this case, and I'm going to defend almost any vocal artist in this case. Do you know how hard it is to sing all the time? I mean, what a strain it is on your voice. I mean, just talking is actually a strain on your voice.
Like performing, like even like us performing for you, the listener, right now. There's times where, like, when we have like moments of silence, I think we're kind of like working out the kinks of like, you know, wrapping our heads around the fact that like people are going to be listening to, you know, everything we say in these podcasts. You know, I think we're going to have to split this one up into 2 different episodes because it is going on 3.5 hours. 3 hours and 34 minutes so far. Can you believe that?
Quick, stop it. Stop it. Let's not make files.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. All right, well,
and there's less of a chance.
I'm actually going to do an outro on this one, so later. That's all I'll end it. Later. I haven't hit the button yet. It's still going.
We'd like to thank the Highline Meadows Condo Association.